In this era overrun by monsters, the eye of insight could read every where a genius completely failed in Kim Taihan. That alone startled the director of the association. Once he had been nothing but a simple porter. In such a dangerous world, anyone without an awakened ability was doomed to live as a humble worker. Since the abyss appeared, hordes of monsters had invaded the human realm. To defend themselves, people began to awaken special powers. With those abilities, humanity repelled countless beasts, and even ventured into the abyss itself. As a result, skill rank became the measure of one's worth. If your rank was high enough, a lifetime of comfort awaited you. But none of that mattered to Kim Taihan. At the age of 35, he still could not open a status window. After collecting the loot that the monster dropped, he looked around and noticed that the battlefield was littered with corpses. He was the only survivor. Before him, a colossal creature whispered in a chilling voice. It was Asmodeus, a demon of SSS rank. Taihan prepared to attack, but the demon's casual movement tore off his arm. A flash of violet light shot through his skull. In that instant, the memories of his entire life came back to him. His days were full of misfortunes. His parents died in a car accident. He himself was harassed for never awakening a power. He really was a failure. However, he refused to die so regretfully. The moment his blood touched the ground, he fulfilled the condition to wake up. A huge march slowly appeared before him. Firm inside, a white silhouette emerged. Time itself seemed to freeze. The monster stood motionless, while Kim Taihan stared at him in disbelief. The figure calling himself Ray explained that he had been summoned through the door that Kim had opened. From this moment on, he would grant Kim Taihan the omnipotence of a king, because he had chosen Kim Taihan. Recognizing his unwavering will and perseverance, a blinding white light flashed before Kim Taihan could react. "One day, you will understand everything," the king murmured. "We will meet again." With those words, a red light shone through the void. When Taihan opened his eyes again, he was met with a sharp stinging slap. He hadn't even figured out what was going on until a status window on the side caught his eye. "Wait, is this 16 years ago?" A wild laugh burst from his chest. The next instant, he punched the short-haired man hard, sending him flying dozens of meters. "If I can see the status window, that means I am now an awakened being." At the same time, two others screamed and pounced on him, but with just a punch and a kick, he sent them both to the ground. For 35 long years, he had never stopped training his body. He had mastered the knowledge of the abyss, monsters, and countless combat techniques. So, in the face of these untrained fools, I was completely confident of victory. In a few moments, both men were lying defeated before him, but then Bou slowly stood up on his side, activating his C-ranked skill, petrification, turning his skin into solid stone. The next second, he lunged forward, with his fist aimed directly at Taijian's face. Kim Taihan barely dodged to the side, but Bou immediately jumped into the air, crashing with tremendous force, only to hit nothing but the ground. At the same instant, Kim Taihan blinked behind in an instant. He threw a strong punch straight to the face of the man, but crashed uselessly into the petrified defense. As Taijian froze in surprise, Bai counterattacked with a brutal punch, sending him flying dozens of meters. Taijian was now on the verge of death. Bou walked towards him slowly, with a cold grimace on his lips. "Levios. Pathetic, now what? Running away or fighting with that useless little skill of yours?" To all awakened beings, abilities and rank meant everything. An F rank was barely stronger than a normal human, while S ranks were monsters. Their bodies and powers grew exponentially, and what Kim Taihan possessed was not only an unseen and unheard of ability, but also one rated at the lowest F. Facing an southeast rank like Bai Joho, he had no chance. However, deep down, I could feel it, I would win. As Kim Taihan slowly stood up again, Bai's eyes widened in shock. In no way did he really wake up. Taijian looked at his hand and whispered, So this is devouring. He could feel the mana surging through his veins. The next instant, me and Bai. He lunged forward with a ferocious punch. But Tai Jian simply raised his right hand, and the two forces collided violently. As a consequence, the stone covering Bai's body began to crack and crumble. With a sudden burst of power, Kim Taijian devoured every trait of Bai's ability, Yo-Yo. That should be the end of it. True. A message from the system echoed before him. Complete predation. Result. Rank increased to E. New skill acquired, petrification. The scene changed. He was now carrying the 3 unconscious students to the school infirmary. After a brief round of treatment, he turned and walked away quietly. Even he couldn't believe it. He had really awakened the gift of predation and defeated Bel Osu. In his past life, no amount of training could raise his rank, but now a battle had changed him. Changed everything. It's only an F-rank ability, he muttered, but its power far surpasses a C-rank, and it can even steal the abilities of others. He could not help wondering why the king had given him this power, and for what purpose he had been sent back. For now, what mattered most was finding out the exact nature of the predation. Since the death of his parents, he had lived under his uncle's roof. Now, he was planning to gather information about talents like his, but then the scene before his eyes made him freeze in shock. A group of thugs was in front of him, and among them was Wan Hiyong. "Wait, shouldn't you be at school right now?" Tai Haiyan asked. His eyes fell on the cardboard boxes scattered on the floor. In that instant, he understood everything. Jian had been dating bullies. The blonde punk teased, "If he doesn't want to get hurt, pretend you didn't see anything." Before he could finish, Kim Taijian punched him hard directly. The crowd froze in shock. Taijian quickly raised his right hand, trying to activate the predation, but the system repeated, "The skill cannot be used." At that moment, the blonde thug's fist crashed into him, making him fly. Instantly, the 3 enemies activated their abilities. 3 streams of energy burst out towards Taijian, hitting him head-on. A mere unawakened scumbag dares to act so boldly. But just then another alert from the system rang out. Predation successfully activated. Confirmed abilities, binding, toxin, bleeding, which resisted our attacks and nullified them. Taijian responded with a crushing blow, knocking one of them to the ground. I didn't know exactly what had happened, but one thing was clear. The predation was terribly strong. Within minutes, the group lay defeated before him. From that fight, he learned 2 key things. First, only awakened beings possessed a status window, and although I could register their data, not all the details were displayed. Secondly, predation was unlike any other skill. Mana was not the only factor that determined his strength. More importantly, it seemed to have a passive effect that could completely nullify abnormal status abilities. Whether his assumptions were correct or not would have to be confirmed through future tests. At that moment, his younger cousin suddenly fell to his knees before him, apologizing profusely, and swearing that he would repent and follow in Kim Taijian's footsteps from now on. Taijian blinked in confusion, taken by surprise by the sudden gesture, but there was no time to dwell on it. Something much more important was about to happen today, so he just smiled and said, "Then come with me. We have something to take care of." Meanwhile, in a restricted area known as the Forbidden Ground, a group of awakened individuals watched in shock, because the phenomenon known as a gate breach had just begun. Gate break, a catastrophic event, where the passage connected to the abyss suddenly opens, releasing waves of monsters on the world. It had been 10 long years since the last gate breach. 2 nearby operators seemed visibly nervous, but one reassured the other that there is no panic. My gift is a B-rank barrier. This gate gap is only C rank, which means that monsters cannot exceed that level. Even if something unexpected happened, a B-rank barrier should have kept things under control. The 2 of them rushed deeper into the restricted area, but only Kim Taijian knew that the gate breach was not only C rank. At the same time, the commanding officer sensed that something was wrong. How are C-rank creatures breaking through a B-rank barrier? Before he could finish, huge shadows emerged from a crack. Gigantic monsters emerged one after another, roaring with fury. The barrier was shattered in an instant. With no time to react, they were all consumed by roaring flames. At that very moment, Taijun's cousin couldn't help but wonder how Kim Taihan knew that the level of the door breaks would increase. To hide the fact that he was a regressor, Kim Taihan simply replied, "It was intuition." At that moment, a huge horde of monsters came charging towards the crowd in chaos. "Do you remember what I told you to do?" he screamed. "Now is the perfect time, but what about you?" His cousin yelled at him. I'll take care of them, of course." Meanwhile, at the command center, the officers received an urgent report. The current gate gap had been raised to an A rank, and now only an awakened A rank was still able to handle it. The A rank ability, Blade of Light, wielded by Anjingho. The scene changed. Kim Taihan was holding the line against waves of monsters. With his gift of predation, he quickly wiped out everything in his vicinity. During the fight, he realized something. The activation of predation was linked to their level of fatigue. Once his fatigue exceeded 70, the skill refused to activate. Most of the abilities were based on mana, but that didn't mean that mana was the only concern. Fatigue was another hidden factor. Using skills depleted stamina, and high fatigue reduced both power and stamina. But surprisingly, he discovered that he could restore mana by absorbing the energy of the slain monsters. More importantly, his rank had now increased to D, and both predation and petrification had also evolved to D rank. "The more I use predation," he muttered, "the stronger it becomes. At this rate, I will become the strongest in the world." As he was preparing to run towards his cousin's location, a gigantic monster suddenly fell from the sky, and just then a Junhu appeared, with his blade of light shining in his hands. With a single, dazzling blow, he split the creature cleanly in half. He had knocked down a Rangwa monster with shocking ease. It was clear now, the one who stopped the gate breaking before the regression had to be her, on Jaeho, the lightsaber wielder. She was still as powerful as ever, but why was she here? Before Taijun's return, she should have been fighting the giant ogre on the other side of the city. Suddenly, a warning appeared in his perception of ability. A moment later, a sword directly pierced through on Jaeho's chest. Her eyes widened in disbelief. The assailant smiled grimly. "I finally got you, on Jaeho." Meanwhile, Taijian's cousin was standing outside the infirmary, lost in thought. His mission was simple, to protect Shoinayan. In her previous life, she had been killed by a monster while trying to save others. So he had to use his sleep ability to knock her out and move her to a safe place. As for what would come next, he would take care of it. Still, one question gnawed at him. How did Kim Taihan know all this? Could he have awakened a talent that would allow him to see the future? The scene changed back to the battlefield soaked in chaos. Even Kim Taihan was transfixed by the surprise. An Jaehu, bleeding profusely, shouted to him, "Who are you?" As expected of an A rank, his mere presence radiated immense power. The one who had hit her was revealed, a B-rank villain named Sandu with the gift of invisibility. In this world, awakened beings who used their powers for crime were known as demons. And Sandu was an extremely dangerous man, but before I returned, Taihan thought, these two didn't even face each other. Return to me has already changed the future. At that moment, An Jung-hoo raised his lightsaber and charged directly at Sandu, but the ground began to shake violently. A colossal monster emerged from beneath the earth, sending out a massive fist that slammed into the group. The sudden change in the battle made everyone tense up, and Sangdu turned his gaze towards Kim Taihan. Well, I wasn't expecting an audience. This is getting interesting. I guess I'll kill you first." He lunged forward with murderous intent. Taijian didn't flinch. His body instantly stiffened when the petrification was activated. With a quick kick, he sent Insundo flying backwards. "Barank criminal Sandu," he said coldly, "the infamous one, they meant you, didn't they? I'm honored to finally meet you." The two clashed fiercely, their attacks and counterattacks resounding like thunder. But An soon realized that his sword could not pierce Tai Jian's hardened defense. He didn't know how Tai Jian had recognized him, but if the man became too trusting, that arrogance would be fatal because in battle, the unexpected always comes. In the next instant, An activated invisibility. Tai Jian shook his fists wildly trying to protect himself against the invisible blows, but An found an opening. A sharp cut tore through Tai Jian's arm, spraying blood into the air. And scoffed, "We've hunted many like you before. People who think they are invincible always run once their weakness is shown." Before he died, An San too mocked, "Here's one last lesson, every skill has a weakness." Their relentless bombardment struck, shattering most of the stone, covering Tai Jian's body. It seemed that petrification could not block all blows. Under a continuous assault, even the stone would crumble. "Did you see it from the beginning?" Tai Jian thought, but just as expected, his physical prowess far exceeded a range of typical. He was holding his ground against rank B, and smiled. "Come on in this little test." With that, he lunged forward once more. "Do you know why I fought against you?" "I hiss, because I intend to steal your skill." In the next instant, he activated invisibility again, quickly circling around Tai Jian, looking for an opening. But Tai Jian calmly raised his left hand. "Didn't you say it yourself? Every skill has a weakness." After countless uses of predation, I had already noticed something crucial. No creature had ever escaped from her. In other words, no matter where you hide, you can't escape from her ration. The next second, the air rippled with darkness, and An Santu's invisible form was completely devoured. At the same time, An Jianho lay on the ground, barely clinging to life. He could not resist the overwhelming attacks of the giant monster. But just as the fatal blow came, Kim Taihan appeared at her side in an instant, taking her out of danger. "You fell so fast, you really made my job easier," he said with a smile. The scene changed. Taihan and his cousin had returned home. Their family members rushed towards them, their faces full of worry and relief after hearing about the catastrophe. Meanwhile, the news spread all over the world. The breaking of the door had finally been contained. The heroes who survived were receiving medical treatment. When the reporters crowded in, one Junju painfully declared, "The one who defeated the giant was not me." But since the monster's body had not yet been found, restlessness persisted among the people. Looking at his phone, Tai Zhao noticed that not once was his name mentioned. He exhaled gently in relief. "Now," he muttered, "it's time to move on to the next phase." Although he now possessed 3 abilities, his current control was limited. Using them all at once was impossible. The mana was running out too fast, and his fatigue shot up almost instantly. The only real solution, mana potions. Elixir is capable of restoring both mana and stamina, although incredibly expensive. And exploring dungeons required official authorization. So he had only one choice, to venture into an unknown dungeon. His next target, B-rank monsters, the Spider Sisters, that Teo reached the next level. I needed to absorb hundreds of them. The next moment, the creatures rushed forward in unison. As huge balls of wax flew towards him, Taejin calmly activated the predation to defend himself. The feeding began. When the energy arose in his body, he gained a new ability, numbness. The scene then shifted to the Players' Association. The players were awakened beings authorized to enter and clear dungeons using their powers. There were 5 main factions in Nation H, including the 4 most powerful guilds. Warriors focused on combat, craftsmen on alchemy, magicians on magic, and night walkers on intelligence and information gathering. And above all of them was the universally recognized institution, the H-Nation Players Association. Sitting at the conference table were 2 powerful figures, the leader of the Nightwalker Guild, the rank player S. Yuyuan, and the president of the Players Association. The rank player S. G. Jin, his most pressing concern at the moment was the rise of a rebel faction, known as the Evil Guild. Its members, all wearing rings engraved with 3 skulls, looted, burned and killed wherever they went, and recently, they had started attacking players. But that's not the real reason you called me here, is it? Ian asked, squinting. Of course not. He replied. There's something else I need your opinion on. If I remember correctly, you passed the player qualification test at the age of 19. So tell me, do you think a high school student could really defeat such monsters? At the same time, Kim Taihan was in contact with the Alchemists Guild looking to buy some mana potions. He casually chose some low-grade magic stones to exchange. Shortly after the gate-breaking incident ended, schools reopened. During that period, Taijun trained tirelessly to strengthen his body and cleared dungeons to accumulate magic stones. After days of effort, he had become a VIP of the Alchemist Guild. At the same time, all of his skills had advanced to the C rank, and his level general had also reached C. Still, he knew his journey was far from over. The people around him were surprised. After all, defeating someone like Bayo could lead to serious consequences if discovered. At that moment, a group of men approached. At the head of them was none other than the head of Bayoyu's team, an awakened of that rank named Li Yonghai. He was the third-generation heir of the Tisen group, the patron of Tisen Academy, and the undisputed ruler among the school's delinquents, who had instigated Yahello and his gang to intimidate Kim Taihan was none other than Li Yonghai himself. So what the hell are you doing here, you bastard? Taihan snapped. Immediately, the subordinates shouted curses at him from behind him. But in the next second, a fist hit one of them, sending the man flying. You have no right to speak here, Li said coldly. Then he turned his gaze to Taihan. I know you defeated by Jojo, but don't get cocky. You should know exactly who is in front of you. Taihan smiled slightly. So, this is the strength of an awakened of that rank. Impressive. Deep down, however, he wondered, could Li Yonghai resist predation? Just as the tension reached its peak, a calm, crisp voice cut through the air. It was Lin Jizhong. She was the Academy's recognized S-rank prodigy, brilliant, respected, destined to become an SS-rank player in the future. But she had one flaw: she was stubborn to the core. Once she decided on something, no one could make her change her mind. Li Junhei frowned, visibly disgusted by his interruption. Their auras collided, the room shook as a fight threatened to break out. But in the end, Li decided to restrain himself, and turned around to leave. The moment he came out, he suddenly launched an attack on Ion. Their powers instantly collided, shockwaves spread throughout the hallway. At that very moment, the school's broadcast resonated strongly. Attention to all students. The Players Association will organize a special conference in the main hall. Please assemble immediately. The Players Association, Li murmured with a smile. After a moment of reflection, he decided to head there first. You're safe for now, Kim Taihan, he said over his shoulder. What are you waiting for? Said Taihan, didn't you hear the announcement? We're supposed to head to the main hall. Li Zhong blinked in surprise, momentarily frozen in place. The scene changed. The students around were whispering. What do you think this conference will be about? On the stage, a middle-aged man took the microphone and spoke. My name is Goatwalk. I'm here today for 2 reasons, he began. First, to provide training and education on the recent portal-breaking incidents. Secondly, to inform you about the upcoming changes in the Players Association examination ceremony. As for the future of the Players Association in the H-Nation, that future is in the hands of you, our new generation of awakened players. As soon as he mentioned the changes in the examination system, the whole hall burst into chatter, energy and curiosity filling the air. Minister Gatai Bob then began to explain. In recent months, portal ruptures have happened too often, he said. The number of dungeons and monsters has skyrocketed, and the Players Association is now facing a severe manpower shortage. That's why, starting today, we will officially allow high school students to take the player exam. The room fell silent for a second before bursting into gasps and murmurs. "We will select the most promising candidates based on the overall assessment data," he added. But Kim Taihan could tell instantly. I was lying while the ad sounded fair. The real selection had already started behind the scenes. The process was being carried out through the personal skill of Goat Walk, the Eye of Insight. It allowed him to see the skill stats of everyone present, and when he concentrated hard enough, he could even see the status windows directly. Minister Gotobak seemed pleased. The talent here far surpassed that of any other academy. Many of these students had real potential to become players, but what really surprised him were two individuals standing near the front. I had already received the list of recommendations from the Nightwalkers Guild. However, these two untrained students possess power readings far beyond what was expected. It was as if he had stumbled upon hidden treasures. Then Lian Jie spoke coldly. "Since this lecture is about the player exam, I think there is someone here who does not belong. Only awakened people can participate in the player exam," he continued, "which means people like him, unawakened trash, don't deserve to be here." "Power is not everything," Goatwalk replied calmly. "Awakening range, adaptability and knowledge of the abyss, all these factors matter. To become a true player, one must be tested in multiple areas, but those tests are designed for awakened candidates," Lee retorted. "For someone who is not awakened, it is nothing but humiliation." Kim Taihan, however, knew the truth. He was just here to confirm if his awakening was genuine. Lin Jun wanted to intervene and stop Lee, but remembering how stubborn Taihan was, he held back. "I knew I wouldn't accept anyone's help." While Li Young-hae continued to stare at him, Taihan remained calm and unperturbed. "He doesn't need to see it with his own eyes for me to prove that I belong here," Taihan thought. Minister Go frowned. Such a rank picking on a weaker student, how disappointing. But when he activated the Eye of Insight and looked directly at Kim Taihan, his expression froze. I couldn't read a single issue of the boy's status. The hall fell silent as Taihan quietly said, "If the unawakened people have no place here, then I will leave." At that moment, the minister was still in shock, neither was the president of the association. Not even guild leader Yu Yuan had caused such a reaction. It happened only with this guy. He saw Kim Taihan walking away. No matter what I tried, I couldn't see through the kid's stats. As Taihan flashed a slight mocking smile, the numbers finally appeared. But what he saw left him completely frozen. Kim Taijian's power level was 5096. The scene changed. Kim Taijian was looking for clues about the king, but soon, Li Young-hee's men found him. "You'd better come with us quietly. And if I refuse, you have that aunt who owns a restaurant, right?" At those words, Taijian's eyes became sharp and cold. "If you don't cooperate," the bully scoffed, "others could get hurt." The next moment, a crash resounded. The library was instantly reduced to ruins. "I will ask you one last time, where is Li Young-hae?" After knowing his location, Taihan went straight to an inner room. A bald bodyguard was there, visibly shocked. He had been casting state-inflicting abilities from the very beginning. In principle, however, none affected Taijian. Such resistance could only belong to an awakened of rank O or higher. Just as Li Junhei had suspected, Taijian was already awake. This meeting, in fact, was Li's attempt to recruit him. "I plan to start my own guild after graduation," Li said calmly. "For that, I need exceptional people. Not third-rate trash like they go or, but someone like you." Then he made a gesture towards Taijian. "Forget about the unpleasant past and become my loyal subordinate. If you do, both you and your family will live comfortably." But Kim Taijian scoffed. "Wealth, fame, none of that interests me. And you will pay dearly for crossing the line." Seeing Taijian's challenge, Li Junhei burst out with a flurry of blazing fire. At the same time, his bald bodyguard quickly raised the barrier, preventing anyone from outside from noticing the commotion. The two then collided in a fierce exchange of blows. With both of them hitting with full force, a massive shockwave erupted, sending them flying before Taijian could react. Li's kick like a whip hit him, knocking him to the ground. A stream of blood gushed from his mouth. "Now you understand your place, right?" Li smiled scornfully. The bald guard watched in silence, lost in thought. "That kid must be an awakened A-rank physical type," he muttered. "Strong fighting ability, solid mental strength. Ordinary people can't touch him." But today, his opponent is the crystal of talent, Li Young-jae of S-rank. There is no way he can win. However, at that moment, something felt wrong. Taijian's speed was increasing. He closed the distance, and slammed a punch directly into Li's face, sending him flying dozens of meters. The bald guard gasped. The young master is being overwhelmed. Li Young-hee's eyes widened in horror. His body was not moving. What's going on? Isn't his skill supposed to improve physical combat? It seems to be finally taking effect. Back then, Kim Taihan had obtained 3 abilities through predation, petrification, invisibility, and numbness. At first, I hadn't used them all. After all, a C-rank numbness couldn't penetrate the resistance of an S-rank, and because the fire attacks covered such a wide area, he couldn't rely on invisibility. As for predation, that was his trump card. It should never be used carelessly. So he chose the safest strategy, hand-to-hand combat, to let the numbness toxin gradually seep into Li Junhai's body. With each blow, the toxin spread deeper, something that even such a range could not resist. Eventually, it would paralyze him completely. As Taijian advanced step by step, the bald guard stared at him in disbelief. He's a genius. He's overcoming the rank gap through pure combat, but the fight wasn't over. Li Junhai gritted his teeth. "You are strong, I admit it, but you will never defeat me." He took out a magic stone. A second later, he crushed it in his hand. A giant of burning fire materialized before Taihan. "Now, I will show you my true power." Facing the towering inferno, Taijian had no choice but to constantly dodge. When the giant's flaming fist crashed, Taijian jumped into the air, launching a counterattack, but the giant spat a huge fireball at him. The two forces collided violently. The force of the fire proved to be greater. The petrified layers shattered instantly. With a thunderous explosion, Tai Young was thrown dozens of meters away. The bald guard recognized him immediately. It was the young master's S-rank ability, Heart of Flame, but at his current level, Li Young-hae couldn't completely control its power. Then that magic stone came to his mind, a mana-amplifying stone, created from the heart of a monster. Multiply the magic energy in an instant. Although that kind of item might allow him to use a true S-rank ability, the overwhelming mana might backfire and destroy him at any moment. But Li Young-hae didn't mind in the slightest. At that moment, Kim Taihan had just stood up only to be knocked down again by a fire punch. As he collapsed, Li's rage spiraled out of control. Seeing this, the bald guard rushed towards Taijian. "If you're still alive, get out of here now," he shouted. But to his surprise, Taijian's response was a hard punch. "The fight is not over. There's no way I'm running away." He quickly drank several recovery potions. As expected of an awakened of that rank, he said smiling, "Then I will also give everything." Elsewhere, Minister Goda Ebek was reporting on the Academy's situation to the president of the association. The president seemed astonished. "Are these numbers real?" "Of course. Li Young-jae is in 1900. Lin Jun is in 2300. Both of them awakened from S rank, even without training. They are already close to the A rank player levels. Comparable to the Saints class in Nation J, the Saints represents one of the best players in Nation J. The results of his awakening test were given the 2,500 points on his first attempt, but Kim Taihan quietly said that he is a monster among monsters. Could it be that my skill is wrong? Either way, Minister Go decided to confirm it himself. At that very moment, the bald guard looked on in disbelief, because Kim Taijian was now absorbing the flames from Li Young-hee's body. Even Lee Jun-hae couldn't believe what had just happened. I lost. To someone like Kim Taihan, he shouted in frustration. I am the heir of the Tison group, and awakened of that rank. As he unleashed his strongest blow. Taijun, keep calm. Your status means nothing to me. I am Kim Taijun, bearer of the power of kings. The moment he activated that power, a crimson energy erupted, and swallowed Lee completely. A deafening explosion followed. The entire stadium was reduced to ruins. Lee Young-hae fell to the ground completely defeated, but Tai-houn's eyes narrowed in surprise. A rank player, Seo Hundu, had not expected that during the predation, Seo Lon-tu would forcibly take Lee out of the consuming energy. Even so, Tai-jaen had successfully absorbed Lee's ability. The ball guard shouted, he is the heir of the Tison group. If you continue like this, there will be serious consequences. Tai-jaen kept his composure. I seemed to be afraid of problems. I had no intention of killing Lee, but there had to be a price. Since he is Tai-san's heir, he said coldly, his life is worth at least 10,000. The explosion inside the arena had attracted the attention of everyone around. Lee Mi-yong instantly recognized the mana and the flames. That's the power of Lee Jun-hae. Don't tell me. He's fighting with Kim Taihan. Soon after, he ran towards the stadium, regret filling his thoughts. I should have stopped Lee Jun-hae earlier. Please, Kim Taihan, come back safely, she pleaded. The scene changed. Lin Yong was standing there in disbelief. You arrived just in time. I need someone to take him to the infirmary. While trying to understand what had happened, Kim Tai-jaen calmly replied. She probably fell down the stairs and told him not to tell anyone she had been there. Then he turned around and left. Finally, Kim Tae-ya exhaled. Fortunately, everything had been handled. But what was that about now? He muttered. Charmed +5, new acquired skill, heart of the monarch, siren. Isn't charm usually an artist's statistic? Why did this appear after the predation on Lee Jun-hae, and why wasn't Earth aflame? Heart of the monarch increases the stats of the allied team members. Lee Jun-hae really had such an ability. This is amazing. Such abilities are extremely rare. It can affect the skill levels of the whole group, and can be combined with any other skill. I never thought I would be so lucky. At that moment, several cars stopped in front of Kim Taihan. The passenger who got out was Minister Go Tai-bok of the Players Association. Although he had a lot of questions, the burning topic in his mind was, what exactly did you do in the stadium now? Elsewhere, the bald bodyguard reported everything to the chairman of the Tison group. He hurt my son, and now you expect him to buy his life. What fun! Soon after, the president agreed to Kim Tai-jaen's demand. But since things have come so far, I need to regain my dignity. With a snap of his fingers, two figures suddenly appeared before him. The bald guard turned pale. But sir, he's just a kid. Shut up. I hate useless people. That man was none other than Lee Young-hae Soo, the chairman of the Tison group, and an S-rank player. Meanwhile, Kim Tai-jaen seemed puzzled by the minister's question. He was referring to what happened in the gym, or the earlier commotion in the conference room. I doubted the minister would come all this way for something so small. So he asked cautiously, are you talking about the explosion now? The minister shook his head. Minor incidents like that are handled by other departments. Hearing that, Tai-jaen's confidence completely returned. He smiled slightly. Then you must be here to give me my invitation to the player exam, right? And what makes you so sure about that? Because the answer is obvious, right? When Tai-jun revealed his full stats, everyone around him froze in disbelief. Their numbers were even higher than before. Who is this guy? Someone whispered. The scene changed. Tai-jun was already telling his cousin the news about his entrance to the player exam. Hearing that, he froze on the spot. Returning to the main topic, the Tai-san group would probably take care of the stadium incident, easing Minister Gok Tai-bok's suspicions about Kim Taihan. For now, he needed to concentrate on preparing for the player exam in a month's time. At that moment, a phone call caught his attention. Meanwhile, Two figures were secretly watching his house from a distance. They whispered to each other, confused. Why would the association players protect a high school kid? You must be one of the candidates for the exam. The intruders were the infamous Black and White brothers. Black possessed invisibility and body enhancement, while White specialized only in invisibility. They planned to show Kim Taihan what an awakened being really was. Just then, a thud came from behind. Damn it. Black turned around, startled. Who the hell are you? His only response was a sudden blow. Kim Taihan smiled slightly. I'm that high school kid you were talking about. A few hours earlier, the bald guard had been stunned by Taijian's demand. 10,0 triple O was not a number I could casually decide on. Of course, Taijian knew that. I simply wanted the man to try to make it happen, to avoid betrayal. He had made the guard wear something special. The Pact of the Awakened, a contract forged through the awakened mana that punishes those who break it. In addition to the 10 million, the guard also had to take care of the stadium incident and warn Taijian in advance. If anyone was planning to take revenge. Kim Taijian found out about the arrival of the killer through the report of the security guards. As the enemies launched their fierce assault, Taijian effortlessly dodged by moving like a shadow. In the next instant, he counterattacked with a powerful punch, but his opponent evaded him with ease. The killer counterattacked with a heavy blow, but his attack hit nothing but air. For a brief second, the killer froze. Taijian was already upon him in midair, so he coldly said, "Besides becoming invisible, you really have no other tricks." Meanwhile, the leader of the Night Stalker Guild was talking to the president of the association about the upcoming player exam. She mentioned an interesting rumor. They say that Minister Goda Evoka abandoned all the S-range alarm clocks just to meet a boy. Aren't you curious? She smiled. How strong does that guy have to be to make the minister personally move? At that very moment, both of the assassins had already been completely subdued by Taijian. He looked at the red glow on his palm, frowning. Body overload. I can't use predation right now. A few minutes later, he called the minister to clean up the scene. The minister asked, "Do you know who attacked you?" Taijun pretended not to know. Even if they were told, they wouldn't be able to handle it. Could the list of candidates for the exam have been leaked? The minister muttered, "We will need to increase security." What worried Tan the most was still the loss of predation. Looks like I'll have to increase my own stats first. There are only two ways to increase the power: predating monsters to increase the level of predation, awakening, or by predating other alarm clocks, but both require the use of predation. Damn it! So there's only one way left. With that thought, Taijian headed to the best gym in the country, but it wasn't the kind of place anyone could walk into. When the woman at the reception questioned him, Taijian casually pulled out the only black card he possessed. She recognized him immediately, the card of the Alchemist Guild, one of the 4 main guilds. Why would someone like him have that? And if we just let him in, something bad could happen. Just then, a voice called out to them. He was the Baron trainer at the gym, known as the Rookie Nightmare, Iron Titan. At that moment, he was proudly flexing every muscle in his body, but Kim Taijian didn't even give him a glance. That instantly upset Iron Titan. "What do you think? You are stronger than me?" Taijian replied calmly. "If you don't believe it, let's make a bet. The loser pays the annual gym membership fee. Deal?" Iron Titan smiled and immediately accepted. The scene changed. The two of them put on their virtual reality equipment. It was for a virtual training program called Virtual Porter. The system was designed using materials derived from the abyss. The participants had to carry the maximum weight to feed a B-rank monster and reach the goal in the shortest possible time. It was the most popular challenge in the entire gym. Meanwhile, Iron Titan was the first to move. Facing the massive monster, he threw a single punch and killed it instantly. The weight he was carrying was much more than Taijun expected. At this rate, the annual gym fee seemed easily his. But at that moment, a sudden flash of light caught his attention. In the next instant, A blur passed quickly. Kim Taihan instantly turned the tables. Faced with the charging monsters, he remained calm and collected with a maximum power punch. Each monster disappeared in an instant. The sight left Iron Titan completely stunned. A moment later, Iron Titan finally reached the finish line. Taijian said quietly, "That was a good game, but I hope you keep your word." The scene changed to the day of the player exam. Talents from all age groups across the nation. They had met. Among the most anticipated were the almost unbeatable hand-to-hand combatant, Iron Fest of Ranka, Honorable Youngbok, the skilled fighter Trut Lahisan of Ranka, the invincible of Bizen, Thunder God Sin Youngbok of Rankas, and the main candidate of all, the so-called Holy Star, Lin Jun, an S-rank alarm clock. Many other talented players had also joined the competition. At the same time, a novice reporter was having problems with her interview. Kem, the reporter from Asua Entertainment, became anxious. If he missed this opportunity, he would lose the job that had cost him so much to get. Just as he was panicking, Kim Tae-jaen slowly appeared in the frame of his camera. "Damn it, there are too many people. How are the participants supposed to get in?" he muttered. After finishing the interview, Tae-jaen rushed straight to the exam venue. The exam hall was packed, crowded, and full of energy. At that moment, Lin Jun seemed surprised. "I didn't expect to see Kim Tae-jaen here, and he looked completely different." Tae-jaen simply replied, "I've only done a little exercise, that's all." I had heard rumors that he had woken up, but I couldn't believe how drastically he had changed in just 1 month. When I was about to ask what had really happened at the gym, a transmission sounded. "Young aspirants of the future, welcome. From among the awakened ones, we will select the most suitable ones to become players. The first rule of the exam is simple: collect number labels. Each participant has one on his chest. If you lose it, you will be disqualified immediately. Collect 5 tags, and you will advance. Time limit, 1 hour. The ground shook violently the next moment. The entire testing ground transformed before his eyes. All means are allowed, but not to kill. Now the exam begins. Many participants had already chosen their first target, the S-rank alarm clock, Ling Yizhong. But they had clearly underestimated her. With a single blow, he knocked everyone to the ground. Even the exam supervisors watching on the monitors couldn't help but marvel. As expected of a holy star, its power is extraordinary. Still, one of them noted, "This year's examinees are definitely stronger than last year's." One of the most anticipated participants was the S-rank alarm clock from Bizen, Sin Jun Bok. It had already been 20 minutes, but no one had managed to get close to him. While people were debating whether Lin Jiang or Sin Junbok were stronger, Minister Go Taibok kept his eyes fixed on Kim Tae-jaen's movements. After all, his stats were beyond extraordinary. "If it is he," murmured the minister, "he will pass this examination easily. Show me all your power, Kim Tae-jaen." But the next scene made him shudder with surprise. Kim Tae-jaen was evenly matched against an A-rank alarmist, Honorable Youngbok. Wait, have I misjudged him? Tae-jaen was being pushed back by an A-rank fighter, unable to dodge a single punch. Soon, however, the minister realized what Tae-jaen was doing. The two continued to exchange fierce blows. After enduring Han's incessant attacks, Honorable finally shouted, "Stone skin is inferior to steel body. Why keep getting hit on purpose? What are you trying to prove?" At that moment, Tae-jun's mana turned on. "I guess taking hits pays off. Even after a month of training, 50% of my limiters are still blocked, which means that my stats are still not high enough." The only way to elevate his abilities was to push his body to the absolute limit. For him, fighting with everything he had was a training in itself, and his training never really ended. With a full-blown blow, Honorable Youngbok instantly collapsed. Finally, Kim Taihan secured his second number tag. Minister Ga Tai-bok burst into laughter. "It is really not normal to use training methods and a live combat exam. Unbelievable, but this is what matters. If he's fighting just to increase his stats, that last battle must have used up most of his stamina. To conserve energy, he will probably start hunting weaker opponents next. But the minister's eyes widened in shock the next moment. At the same time, others watching the screen became anxious. Is the rank of me challenging a rank like that? Is he crazy? Kim Taihan was now face to face with Sin Junbaj, the god of thunder. Sham's chest was glowing with 147 number tags. Looking at him, Taihan made a bold statement. All I have to do is beat you. The two immediately collided with an overwhelming force. As the lightning waves surged towards him, Taihan dodged with pinpoint accuracy, with a single flick of Sin's finger. More lightning struck, but Taihan evaded them all. He countered with a stone-laden kick, but failed to leave a mark. Still, Sin Youngbak smiled approvingly. Few had come so close to him. A crash followed. Kim Taihan was thrown backwards by the electric explosion. He didn't even expect Bizen's thunder god to be so formidable. The thunderous aura surrounding him not only blocked every attack, but gave him the power to fight both near and far. Kim Taihan pondered without using predation. How could he break through that defense? At that moment, Sin Junbaj charged forward to attack. Taihan quickly stepped aside, but the thunder god cut off his escape with a quick kick. Then came a relentless barrage. Taihan had no choice but to retreat and dodge. Suddenly, Sin raised both hands, and a torrent of lightning fell on Taihan. The thunder god laughed mockingly, taunting him with every blow. In the next moment, Taihan activated the stone skin by throwing a massive stone fist directly at his enemy. But with a simple wave of his hand, Sin shattered him instantly. A blinding flash filled the arena. Taihan's vision was completely lost. Meanwhile, the thunder god raised his right hand high. In the next instant, a terrifying lightning explosion hit Kim Taihan head-on. However, Kim Taihan endured the lightning by sheer force of will. Even Sin Junbak seemed surprised. He had assumed that all the other contestants were third-rate trash, and that only Lin Jun could be at his level. But he didn't expect that someone like that existed. At that moment, a small stone shot out towards him, hitting him squarely in the forehead. While he was shuddering with surprise, Taihan appeared behind him in an instant. With a powerful blow, countless pebbles exploded on the thunder god's body. Shan couldn't understand it. How could those attacks have even landed? It was true. Under normal conditions, the power of the stone skin could not pierce through his lightning shield. Even a stone of the highest quality would shatter the instant it touched his energy. But the examination field was different, built with special materials capable of withstanding power at the player level. They might crack, but they would never completely disintegrate. Using those fragments as weapons, Taihan had found a way to break through the thunder god's defense. As for you, without Youngbok, you are no match for me. With that, Taihan dealt a single crushing blow, completely defeating him. The crowd erupted in disbelief. A rank has just been defeated to a rank that. Who the hell is Kim Taihan? Minister Go Taibok finally let out a sigh of relief. What an amazing guy, he said with admiration. But a moment later, his forehead furrowed again. At the same time, Kim Taihan looked at the number labels scattered on the floor. All I had to do now was wait for the exam to finish. Suddenly, an ice spear shot out at him. Taihan jumped into the air, barely dodging her. He frowned. Why were our eyes here of all places? But the next I left him completely two-tone. Countless snowflakes exploded, covering the entire sand. Within seconds, a huge frozen domain had formed. And from inside, Lin Jun slowly advanced. Taijian's eyes widened. Why is she here? Have you been watching all this time? Lin spoke. Take it easy. I believe that with great power comes great responsibility. Using your skill without moderation is nothing but barbarism. Kim Taihan, you are strong. I admit it. Even she didn't expect him to defeat Sin Youngbaj like that. So tell me, is that the same method you used to beat Li Yonghai? In the next instant, huge ice pillars plummeted down from above. Then came a storm of falling spikes. Taijian desperately dodged to survive, but Lin Jiayong appeared in front of him, delivering a swift kick that sent him flying. She spoke coldly. I believed in you once. I thought that you were different from Li Yonghei, that you wouldn't act recklessly out of self-interest. But after watching your fight right now, I finally understand everything. Both Li Yonghei and Bai Echu were injured by Kim Taihan himself. A huge pillar of ice emerged from the ground. Taihan was thrown backwards and crashed heavily to the ground. Lin Jiayong continued, it's because you abuse your power that they are still in the hospital beds. But that was his fault that he didn't report you to the association. But I hope you will withdraw from the exam yourself, because you don't deserve to become a player. Kim Taihan replied sharply. A woman who couldn't even stop Li Yonghei is talking about power and responsibility. In the end, you just want to eliminate me. What is it? Are you afraid of my power? Hearing that, Lin's expression hardened. She had made up her mind. As the magic swirled around him, a huge frost hammer materialized in his hands. Kim Taihan, this is where you fall. In the face of such overwhelming power, Taihan found himself lost. After hundreds of stone skin activations, his strength was already spent. Stealth was useless against such a broad attack. Although the monarch's heart was fully activated, he couldn't do anything in this situation. Even worse, warrior's abilities were still not activated. His resistance was exhausted, and he was unable to infuse any paralyzing toxins into his punches. Now, there was only one option left. With a burst of determination, Kim Taijing charged straight at Lin Jiayong. With a fierce strike from Lin Jiayong, a blinding flash of white light filled the entire arena. As the crowd wondered who had won, the sight before them left everyone frozen in disbelief. As the fog slowly dissipated, two figures came into view. They were kissing. No one could have guessed that the moment Lin swung his ice hammer, Kim Taijian would lunge straight at her. The reason behind that sudden move was to inject his paralyzing toxin. By releasing a state element skill, short-distance internal transmission greatly increases the success rate. That's why Taijian made her swallow the paralyzing toxin-infused blood, considering that an S-rank awakens natural resistance. It was a reckless gamble. But fortunately, the plan worked. At that moment, the loudspeakers in the arena announced that the first phase of the player exam is over. All candidates, stay where you are. After the test concluded, all the injured participants were treated quickly. Although Nyan had been hit by the paralyzing toxin, she did not lose her number tag, so she also passed the player exam. As for Kim Taihan, even with only 7 tags, defeating both Sin Youngbok and Lin Yong made him the center of attention. This healing is not bad. Maybe I should try to devour one, he muttered. While Taihan was pondering that thought, Sin Youngbok suddenly lunged at him. Even Taijian didn't expect to see him here. You won't get away with those cheap ones this time. With a burst of power, they were both thrown backwards by the impact. The surrounding candidates watched with enthusiasm, cheering the duel. A flash of lightning suddenly fell between them. Let's figure this out. Fair and square, cried Sin. Just as their clash was about to begin, an invisible force surged through the sand, pinning Sin Junbaha to the ground. She screamed in pain, writhing under the pressure. Taijian stared in disbelief, and then a man with glasses slowly walked towards them. Damn it, can't you two calm down for a moment? Kim Taihan recognized him immediately. It was Park Song-jin, an S-rank player. He was one of the best in the association, destined to become a double S-rank in the future. Park looked surprised. Someone could really stand before him with a sudden burst of power. Taihan felt an overwhelming pressure weighing on his entire body. He finally realized how vast the gap was between the S-rank awakened ones and the true players. Even Park himself was impressed. Few veterans could stand this level of suppression. Just as he was about to push harder, a doctor stepped in to stop him. After a brief but stern lecture, Park turned around and asked for Taijian's name. My name is Kim Taihan. So you're the one who defeated to S-rank. Interesting. Your goal should be to become an S-rank player yourself. I'll be waiting for you at the finish line." With that, Park walked away. The scene changed to the second phase of the player exam. The rules were simple. Go through the door behind them to a dungeon of rank of. The crowd erupted in shock. A real dungeon. Each team would consist of five candidates, led by a player examiner, to clear the dungeon. Every one of his movements inside would be evaluated. Combat skill, awareness, knowledge, and medical support. The association would provide the necessary weapons and consumables. The examiner announced to Now Then, "Please enter through the door in order." For the moment, Kim Taihan seemed calm. After all, with real players present, nothing too serious should happen unless they encountered the dual dungeon, Apocalypto. An S-rank nightmare. It was discovered. For the first time during a rank player exam firm where the entire entry team was instantly eliminated. Since then, countless unverified dungeons were banned for exploration. If only I could stop it before it happens, Taijun thought, but who would believe me? Besides, I have my own mission to focus on now. As long as he wasn't the first to discover the dual dungeon, he might find a way to survive. After entering the dungeon, he looked at the 5 people in front of him and remained silent for a long time. The invigilator of this exam was none other than Marahak, an rank player, and the first man to discover the dual dungeon. The scene changed. The group entered the dungeon with burning determination. In a matter of moments, they eliminated all the monsters in front of them. Even the examiner smiled approvingly. "Awesome for your first real battle. Getting your player license is only a matter of time," but Tan found it hard to believe. "Why is that? Did I have to end up on this team?" "No doubt, that ring on my Tao Hack's hand is the same as the Sage's ring from the first dual dungeon case, a unique artifact. That multiplies all stats by 10. And if that dungeon is really rank S, without my predation skill, I'm dead. So I needed a plan. I had to stop them from discovering the dual dungeon before it was too late. The opportunity came sooner than I expected." While the group was debating which way to go, Kim Taihan ran out into the corridor on the right. The examiner shuddered. "Hey, acting on your own is dangerous." But Taihan had no choice. I couldn't let them discover the dual dungeon. However, moments later, he regretted that decision. A glowing portal appeared before the team. "Why is there another door inside the dungeon?" someone asked. Taijun recognized him instantly. The dual dungeon known as Apocalypse. Damn it. After all that detour, we ended up here. When a teammate approached to investigate, Taijan quickly stopped him. "Wait a second. A new hole that appears inside a dungeon like this. Doesn't that seem strange to you? Shouldn't we report this to the association first?" Even the examiner seemed unsure. It was the first time I had seen something like that. After a short pause, he decided to come in and take a look himself. The mana flow around the door was only D rank, and with a rank player present, it seemed manageable. Also, if it was a special event, being the first to explore, you could get a big bonus score. Taijan shuddered, but that's not against the rules. The examiner replied, "Kim Taijan, a guy who knows nothing about teamwork, has no right to talk about rules." The rest of the group immediately turned on him, with voices that rose in reproach. With a snap of the examiner's fingers, a blinding white light filled the area. When Taijan opened his eyes again, what he saw made his heart freeze. This looked nothing like a rank dungeon, as an imposing statue loomed before them. The team murmured in confusion. "Hush," Taijun warned sharply. "They're already here." 2 dark silhouettes slowly emerged from the shadows, and when their full forms came into view, panic seized the group. They were rank monsters, Death Knights. "Battle positions now," the examiner ordered. The monsters are rushing forward at full speed. The team barely rolled to the side to avoid the blow. The examiner quickly assigned roles. He would use magic to suppress the enemy. The others would look for an opening to attack, and the paw of the shield should be in front, to block the onslaught. After an exhausting struggle, the group finally took down the rank monster. None of them had imagined that they could really defeat something of that level. Just as they were wallowing in the excitement of victory, they suddenly became paralyzed. In a state of shock, a new wave of Death Knights was slowly marching towards them. Everyone's face paled in disbelief, but Kim Taihan sensed that something was wrong. A few minutes later, they cleared another wave of enemies. By now, everyone was panting, almost exhausted. But the monsters did not diminish. In fact, each wave generated twice as much as before. At this rate, everyone was doomed to die here. At that moment, Taihan spoke up, saying that he had noticed something strange. The examiner frowned. "What's wrong with this kid? He has been struggling for a long time, and is still not tired." He also realized that the door was incredibly dangerous, but none of them knew about it. The only reason they were still alive was because the ability of Taihan, Heart of the Monarch, had increased their stats beyond their limits. "So, what exactly is it that seems strange to you?" "It's just a hunch," Taihan replied, "but those weren't Death Knights." The others looked at him in disbelief, not wanting to accept it. He knew what he had to do, confirm it himself. Raising his great sword, he charged at the monsters. When the enemies swarmed, he jumped high into the air and threw his sword directly at the huge statue in front of him. With a thunderous crash, the statue was shattered. At that moment, all the Death Knights disappeared. The entire environment began to distort, violently reshaping itself. This was an illusion, a mirage trap. It makes us fight ghost enemies to drain our stamina. The group had a hard time accepting it. After all, they had fought with everything they had for nothing. The examiner frowned, "But you've never fought the Death Knights. How did you know it was a trap?" "Instinct," Taihan said dryly. "True Death Knights aren't that weak." He warned the others. "We need to get out now before this place kills us," but even after the mirage trap was destroyed, things didn't get better. The appearance of the dual dungeon had completely twisted the inner space of the dungeon. After the long battle, everyone was already bruised and exhausted. His only hope now was to find the way out before it was too late. After a brief search, they finally found a huge door. It was risky to open it, but at this point they had no other choice. When the door opened with a creak, the examiner's face stiffened. Behind the door knelt a single Death Knight. Just when everyone thought it was over, countless Death Knights began to emerge from the shadows. A burst of firelight suddenly ignited, filling the entire living room with a crimson light. Their bodies were shaking uncontrollably. What they had before them were legions, hundreds of Death Knights filling the hall. A deep, resonant voice rumbled in the air. "Silly humans, they've finally arrived. Now that the duel begins, the boss demanded one-on-one battles to the death." In the face of the overwhelming horde, panic spread throughout the team. As Taihan tried to calm them down, 3 of his teammates turned and fled in terror. They would rather return to the entrance than die here. In the next moment, the blow of a Death Knight knocked them down, leaving them bloodied on the ground. The remaining 2 stared in horror, frozen with fear. "I'll stop them," Taihan shouted. "Find the exit now." But suddenly, Matao Hek hit him back through the door, then sealed it with a wall of magic. Taihan stared in disbelief. Why would he do that? And then he whispered to himself. He has always wanted to become a player of that rank. No matter how much he trained, the more he tried, the further he got from his goal. He once believed that clearing the dual dungeon would fulfill his dream, but things were much more complicated than he thought. Facing the Death Knight's relentless assault, he raised his sword and unleashed an X-cut, knocking one of them down instantly. At that moment, he had to admit that Kim Taihan really possessed the potential to become an S-rank player. That's why he wanted Taihan to take the wounded and escape, while he could still stop these monsters. That's the job of a tractor. But when he looked at his fallen teammates, he realized they were gone. Suddenly, a deafening explosion went off behind him. He turned sharply. Rows and rows of Death Knights were in front of him. The practitioner collapsed in a pool of blood. Taijun's heart was pounding with terror at the gruesome sight. Then one of the Death Knights slowly raised his sword. Dueling request, Taijun froze. His eyes caught a faint glimmer on the floor. That ring was the ring of the sage Matahak. In the next instant, the Death Knight rushed towards him. Taijian stepped aside, and quickly snatched up the fallen ring. Now, it was his only hope. The moment he put it on his finger, a surge of power surged out of his body, obliterating the surrounding monsters. Even the boss was stunned. What is this power? A bright message appeared before him. Sage's ring equipped. All stats plus 10%. Condition fulfilled. Predation ability unlocked. A wave of crimson energy erupted, devouring every Death Knight in the room in a matter of seconds. At the same time, waves of enemies rushed towards him. Kim Taihan instantly activated the predation to block their advance. With a single blow, he threw them back in an instant, but predation alone was not enough. It took him a full 10 seconds to consume them. During that time, he had to unleash every skill he possessed. I had to fight with everything I had. Only then could he survive. Suddenly, a purple spear crashed right in front of him. The impact almost stopped his heart, and what came after completely left him stunned. The boss was gathering a huge wave of magic. In the blink of an eye, countless spears floated overhead, then rained down like a storm, aiming directly at him. To avoid being skewered, Taijian rushed forward with all his might. Taking advantage of a brief opening, he threw the predation directly at the boss. But the boss simply raised a hand and completely erased it. "You're strong," the boss muttered coldly, "but that's all you are." With that, he brandished his weapon in a devastating blow. Kim Taijian was thrown through the house, crashing heavily into a pool of blood. The boss wondered who could have given Kim Taihan such a power. Then he unleashed the roar of the Night King, a deafening blow aimed directly at him. But part of that force was blocked by an unknown energy arising from the body. From Taijian. "You're not an ordinary human," the boss growled. "I already knew I could understand their language. Tell me, what exactly is your power?" While the boss was gathering strength, Taijun's body reached the brink of collapse. At that moment, the shadow of Asmodeus appeared once more before the rodeo. Of his fallen teammates. Suddenly, he realized that it was the same as before. Nothing had changed. I didn't know what predation was or why I could understand the language of monsters. He had gained strength and opportunity, but still he did not manage to change anything. "Why did the king give me this power?" he murmured faintly. Then a familiar voice echoed by his ear. A blurred figure emerged before him, shrouded in darkness. "I never gave you power," the voice said calmly, full of quiet dominance. "I simply admire your will and your defiance. You don't need to change. Just keep moving forward." In the next instant, Kim Taijian's eyes suddenly opened. As the boss was preparing to deal a fatal blow, countless crimson energies gushed out from Taijian's body, surging in all directions. Everything they touched was devoured into nothingness. The boss finally sensed the danger, which is forcing his ability to overload. With a furious roar, Taijian's magical power exploded upwards like a storm. Seeing this, the boss smiled with twisted emotion. He brandished his weapon with all his might with the aim of crushing him. But this time, Taijun blocked it effortlessly. "Do you want to know what this power is?" he said coldly. "Then feel it for yourself." With another increase, his predation ability rose to the B rank. A massive explosion of energy hit the boss head-on. Throwing it dozens of meters away, Taijian grabbed the giant sword at his side. In an instant, he reappeared before the chief, cutting incessantly. The boss roared with rage, pushed to the limit. He conjured up a storm of weapons, sending them flying towards him. But Taijian simply raised his right hand, calmly and unfazed. With a single devastating blow, a crimson dragon burst out in one fell swoop, roaring as it lunged straight at the boss. The boss froze in disbelief. Kim Taijun muttered, "I'm not human. This power is the power of the king." With a violent surge of energy, a crimson light erupted from his body, devouring the boss completely. A message from the system rang out. New skill acquired, Mastery of the Night King. Outside the dungeon, everyone was anxiously looking at the shiny entrance. After the recalibration, the dungeon was officially classified as S rank. Damn! How could a rank dungeon suddenly become S rank? At this rate, everyone inside will die. There's no way that kid can handle it on his own. Just then, the entrance burst into flashes of violet light. People prepared themselves thinking that another wave of monsters was coming, but instead, a single figure slowly emerged from the glow. Kim Taihan had returned. Court later, thanks to their efforts, every surviving candidate was safely evacuated. The results were judged based on the pre-departure performance. Those who perished were duly buried. As for who cleared the double dungeon, the top brass agreed to keep it a secret. Public exposure would only bring Taihan endless problems. Of course, the president of the association and his two senior officers completely understood the weight of what had happened. The president turned to them and asked, "What is your assessment of their strength?" One of them replied, "Anyone who can clear only one double dungeon. If he really did it alone, it's at least S rank. No doubt about it." However, one of them added, "Given his current rank, he is still. It is far from the S class. That means its potential is unlimited." The two exchanged a glance and said in unison, "That child could become a strategic asset at the national level." Meanwhile, Kim Taihan was paralyzed by disbelief. Countless monsters loomed before him, their presence overwhelming. "Damn, this place is the abyss, isn't it?" he muttered. From a distance, a lone figure slowly approached, and then hit him. That man was the king. All around him, every monster began to scream in agony with a single movement of the king's hand. All of them were instantly erased from existence. Taihan stood motionless, stunned. A deep, resonant voice echoed from ahead. "I will be waiting for you in the deepest part of the abyss." He woke up startled from the nightmare, gasping for air. Her heart was pounding because she knew that this was not a dream. What did the king mean by those words? He whispered. The power of predation, that even monsters of that rank had the ability to understand their language. There were too many mysteries. "There seems to be no other choice," he murmured. "I have to enter the abyss myself." He took a look at his skills window. Rows of B-rank abilities were now shining before him. As expected, his battle against the Night King had boosted his level to the B rank. His overall power now rivaled that of an S-class player. And at this rate, he would soon rise to become a strategic force for the entire nation. At that moment, a sound outside the door caught Taihan's attention. A moment later, a shadowy figure slowly appeared before him. Suddenly, I was sitting inside a car. He couldn't help but wonder why the leader of the Nightwalkers Guild, one of the 4 main guilds, wanted to meet with him. She calmly replied, "I just wanted to meet the one who cleaned the double dungeon, and offer him a nice house." But Taihan clearly didn't buy that excuse. She sighed and got straight to the point. "The third test will be the same as the first simulated combat. However, this time it will be public. The audience will be watching everything from the stands. That means that all your skills will be exposed. Once they see your power, all the guilds will come after you. That's why I came to invite you to join the Nightwalkers. Whatever you want, I can make it happen." But Taihan rejected his offer without hesitation. He just said he was going home. The guild leader frowned. Why was it so decisive? Has he already been recruited by another guild? Taihan shook his head. For him, all the guilds were the same. "I just didn't want any strings attached, nothing more." When he turned to leave, she suddenly appeared in front of him and covered his mouth with one hand. "Brat, you are just a newly awakened player, and you dare to refuse one of the big 4 guilds." However, even in his anger, he couldn't help but smile. She really saw something special in him. Taijun muttered under his breath, "As reckless as ever, just like your sister Lima Zhang." The guild leader froze, her eyes wide open in shock. "What? How do you know that?" "Oh, I know a lot," Taijan said with a slight smile, "including the name that was stolen from you." In the next instant, a wave of green light shot up into the sky. The guild leader's aura exploded, filling the air with crushing pressure. Even the man next to him frowned. Damn it! This just came back. Her real name was Lima Young, the illegitimate daughter of the CEO of the Yulin Group, destined to inherit the company. But after the CEO's legitimate wife gave birth to another daughter, her name was taken away. She changed her surname to Lu, and chose the path of a female player instead. Very few people in the world came to know this secret. Now, his overwhelming energy flooded the room, but Taijun didn't back down. He unleashed his own power in response. He activated the Night King's domain by facing his force head-on. The eyes of light opened. What? He blocked and countered my attack. Taijian slowly advanced. In a quick movement, he pinned her against the wall, with the palm of his hand next to her face. You better not step out of line, Miss Lua Young. The guild leader's face turned crimson in an instant. The next day in the morning, crowds gathered inside the big arena. It was time for the third player test to start. Unlike the previous rounds, this one was open to the public. Viewers could freely watch the entire exam. Of course, the main examiners were also monitoring everything from backstage. Hidden in the crowd sat Lueong, carefully disguised. Nearby, Taijian's uncle watched nervously. He had heard how dangerous player exams could be, but his cousin just smiled. Relax. Young Taijian can knock them out in one fell swoop. At the same time, reporter Kim was getting more and more anxious. The last time, I had only interviewed an awakened C rank, angering his editor. That guy Kim Taijian must have been eliminated by now, right? If I don't get a real interview again, I'm done. Suddenly, the atmosphere inside the arena changed. Even the veteran players and the ranked fighter Ale Hissen had their eyes set on only one person, Kim Taijian. Are they planning to attack him in a group? How strong is that guy really? The loudspeaker boomed. Attention all spectators. Please stay alert and enjoy the match. The third player exam starts now. When the signal sounded, each contestant charged directly against Taijian. After all, in the first round, he had defeated only two S-ranked opponents. The crowd of challengers rushed forward. A shadow slipped through the fog. Taijian reacted instantly by activating his petrification ability. A flurry of punches and kicks erupted like thunder. In a matter of seconds, all the attackers flew out, but then something flashed under their feet, a pulse of emerald light. In an instant, countless vines sprouted from the ground, enveloping him tightly. Taijian frowned in surprise. What the hell is this thing? Li Gissen scoffed. Even if you've beaten two East ranks, you've still let your guard down. This time, the winner will be me, rank Li Gissen. Before he could finish, Taijian broke free of the vines. With a single kick, he sent Li Gissen flying dozens of meters away, but there was no time to rest. More contestants rushed in from all sides. Taijian raised his hand and whispered, "Domain of the Night King." A crimson burst of energy exploded, flooding the arena. The spectral form of the Night King appeared before everyone. The overwhelming pressure froze every opponent in place. From their stands came a wave of shocked gasps. Liu Aong muttered under his breath, "Amazing. He really used that move in a public exam." Within moments, all the other contestants were down. It seemed that the match was finally over. There was only one left, the ranked player San Li Meong. Tai Haiyan smiled slightly. "Why don't you give up now? Or do you really want to relive what happened in the first round?" His expression tensed instantly. The next moment, a massive ice barrier rose up around him, locking Taijian in place. "Taijian, you better worry about yourself first." This time, he swore he wouldn't let that happen again. In a few moments, the entire arena was in ruins. Lima Young staggered forward before collapsing to the ground. She hadn't been able to defeat Tai Haiyan, but he still gave her high praise. She had been his toughest opponent so far. Then the announcement echoed throughout the arena. The player exam is officially over. The winner, candidate number 920, Kim Taihan. We switch to the next scene, the president of the association presenting her with lavish rewards. "Congratulations. You're an S-rank player now." The president hadn't expected that. Taijian had defeated all the contestants on his own, but on second thought, It made sense. After all, he was the man who cleared the double dungeon by himself. Smiling, the president asked, Taijian, would you consider joining the New Age Nation Players Association? Your strength could change the future of our guild. Taijian froze speechless. He looked at the trophy in his hands, lost in thought. So much had changed. Once an ordinary man with no power, he had defeated S ranks and claimed the first place. Even the leaders of the big four guilds, including the strongest player in the new nation age, Giji and Sk, had extended an offer. But after careful consideration, Taijian rejected them all. The president of the association was stunned by his decision. Taijian finally gave his answer. Instead of working for a guild or the association, I think I will be much more efficient on my own. The president burst out laughing, surprised by her response. Do you think one man can surpass an entire organization? Then his tone changed. Okay, let's drop the recruiting talk. There's something else you might be interested in, the Asian Friendship League. Would you consider joining? A few days later, Taijian was inside another dungeon. It wasn't long before every monster was annihilated. While catching her breath, she remembered what the president had mentioned, the Asian Friendship League. It was a continental tournament where 5 representatives of the guilds of each nation competed to hunt demons and monsters. But joining was not easy. To qualify as a national representative, one needed a huge amount of contribution points, and the only way to earn them was by killing powerful monsters. The president had suggested that Taijun represent his country, but Taijun knew the truth. As a newly ranked player, in order to catch up with the veterans who had built years of progress, he would have to face much stronger monsters than before. After a full month of tireless raids, he had cleared every dungeon he could find, but he got no growth and no points. With no other options, Taijian decided to head to the most dangerous place of all. On the other side of the city, the chairman of the Thyssen group was roaring at his bald subordinate furiously. His son was still bedridden in a hospital bed, and the man who put him there had somehow become a player of that rank. Tapping with his hand, the president's aura lit up. His subordinate was crushed to the ground instantly. At that moment, a maid stepped forward and whispered, "Sir, someone from the evil guild has come to visit you." The president's anger deepened. After all, it was that same guild that he had hired to deal with Kim Taijian. Suddenly, a strong pressure filled the room. A solitary figure came through the door. "Calm down, President. Your target is that brat, isn't it?" The president narrowed his eyes. "Who are you?" "Nice to meet you," the man said evenly. "I'm Sadu, vice president of the evil guild." We switched to Taijian just as he was leaving the portal. He was greeted by the shout of a burly man greeting him. It was Park Hijin Jaean, an rank alchemist, the player in charge of escorting him to the auction hall. He was also one of the biggest Taijian fans, and a proud member of the Taijian fan club. "Welcome to the East Wing, the highest class auction area in the city. It hosts the largest and most prestigious auctions in the entire region." The auction featured only the finest quality items. It even offered real-time translation for buyers from different nations, but its biggest strength was security. The coordinates of this place could change at any time, and, without a permit, no one could find it. Thanks to that system, not a single incident had happened in decades, but Taijin knew the truth. Today, this place would be attacked by a demon of that rank. On the stage, the host was introducing a rare item, the Phoenix Elixir, a potion that could increase both mana and stamina by 20 points. Taijin's goal was simple: to earn contribution points by killing the approaching East rank demon. However, I didn't know much about this place. All he remembered was that before his regression, the East Wing suffered catastrophic losses in the demonic assault, and he couldn't help but wonder who had defeated that monster back then. He turned to the fat man next to him. "Who is in charge of this auction house?" The man was about to respond when a high-pitched voice echoed in the air. "Well, if it's not the youngest S-rank player of the H Nation, Kim Taihan, isn't it?" The speaker was our nation's own S-rank player, Rei Isaka, the head of security for the whole place. But one thing had to be remembered. This man was notorious for betraying even his allies for personal gain. Among the players, he was known as the demon. He slowly extended his left hand, an honor to finally meet you, genius player. Taihan, suspecting nothing, reached out his hand and shook it. The next moment, a surge of electricity coursed through his body. I didn't expect the man to attack so suddenly. Reo and Asaka's eyes shone with enthusiasm. So it's true, you really are a rank that. Taijan was about to counterattack, but then he saw the crowd nearby. They were writhing on the ground, overwhelmed by the electric shock. Reo casually released Taijian's hand, then leaned over and said with a smile, "You understand now, don't you? Even among the S ranks, there is still a hierarchy. I don't know why you're here, but take my advice. Don't do anything stupid. Just enjoy the auction." As the man's figure faded into the crowd, Taijian narrowed his eyes. Things are getting more complicated than I thought. At the same time, in another part of the building, a group of figures was silently approaching the control room. To secure the control room, the bald man led his squad in a direct assault, but with a single move. They were all eliminated by the old man. That man was none other than Oran Rinaru, a mysterious demon of S rank. At the same time, one of his subordinates nervously reported, "There is a problem in the auction hall. The S-rank player of the New Age Nation, Kim Taihan, is on the site." "What should we do?" Naru muttered with a cold smile. "That little brat, as long as I'm here, no one escapes God's revelation." The next instant, a thunderous explosion tore through the air, engulfing the auction hall in flames. More explosions followed in quick succession, reducing two entire buildings to rubble. Even Taijian was stunned. I knew the attack would happen, but not that there would be multiple attacks at once. How on earth did they manage to get into the auction grounds? But the questions could wait. At this moment, the demons had to be dealt with first, as one of them raised a hand, indicating to the others to stay still. A blur of movement flashed across the room, and in an instant, every demon was cut off where it was. Taihan turned to Park Hyungwon. "Contact the association and request reinforcements. I'll go after whoever's pulling the strings." We switched to the auction floor, where the guards were fighting to protect the recently sold items to the customers. But as soon as Dark gave the order, the two sides engaged in a brutal fight. Within seconds, the bodies were strewn across the blood-soaked floor. Dark snatched an object from the table. Finally, the Phoenix Potion. Drinking this permanently increases mana and stamina by 20 points. He finally understood why Niru wanted him so much. The inner power was palpable even with a glance. "If I can drink it myself," a deafening explosion interrupted him. One of his men collapsed instantly. Before he could react, his followers were killed one after another by an invisible force. "What? That's the invisibility skill," Dark shouted. At that moment, a sharp cut fell from above. Tearing out his right eye, roaring in pain, he unleashed a blast of dark energy. In an instant, chains of pure mana sprouted from the ground, binding Taijian tightly. "Do you think being invisible makes you invincible? You're finished," but Taijian smiled instead. "So this skill can even track targets. Well, it's definitely worth a predation." On the other hand, Niru had already taken control of the Dimensional Gate's control room. Everything was going smoother than expected. Once he got the Phoenix Potion, it would all be over. One of his men nervously reported, "Sir, the Dark Team sent a message, but something seems to be wrong." Suddenly, a voice crackled through the radio. "It must be Niru, right?" Niru's eyes narrowed. "Who the hell are you?" "Who else? The guy who just took your precious object. If you want to get your Phoenix Potion back, you'd better come and get it yourself." After throwing the taunt, Taijun picked up the potion and drank it in one gulp. In an instant, his stamina and mana increased. Even he was surprised at how powerful the effect was. "Well, at least now, I don't have to worry about it falling into the wrong hands." Meanwhile, Reo and Isaka and their squad finally arrived on the scene. The team seemed perplexed. The tracker led them directly here, but there was no one around. Then Isuka spoke softly. It's right in front of us. Show yourself, Kim Taijun. A glow rippled in the air as Taijun appeared smiling. I didn't think you'd really spot me. Isuka's gaze sharpened. A player of that rank like you. Why are you here? Taijun replied. Better question. Why is the head of security here at this hour? Isuka explained that she was looking for something important. Upon hearing that, Taijun immediately put the pieces together. No wonder he fell from the beginning. So many high-level players gathered here, and not a single one noticed that the enemy had already infiltrated. You need a special authorization to even enter here. You seem to be the mole inside their organization, don't you? The next instant, lightning and Azoka launched directly at Kim Taijun. But Taijun raised his sword and blocked it effortlessly. Hand it over now. Isuka roared. Taijun replied coldly. You'll have to earn it. The two collided, the leaves clanking in the air in a violent exchange. The cuts passed quickly in all directions, the air quivering with energy. Taijun was starting to feel the pressure. Even with the invisibility active, Asaka could still pinpoint his position only through sound and murderous intent. In that split second of distraction, a sharp blow fell from above. He noticed in Sok, although they shared the same skill, the difference in mastery was huge, but he was still not ready to use predation yet. Gathering his strength, Taijun unleashed his aura. An invisible force burst outward, slamming everyone nearby to the ground. But when the dust settled, Isoka was gone. His voice echoed from above. You guessed right. Invisibility means nothing against wide area detection. But if you really want to find me, you should have aimed that skill up. Before the words faded, a devastating blow fell, splitting the entire corridor in half. But Isuka's confident smile turned into disbelief. Taijun had blocked the fatal blow with conjured chains. Taijun finally spoke up. That last hit wasn't meant to find you. It was meant to limit your movement. As he spoke, countless chains wrapped tightly around Reo and Isuka. With a loud punch, Taijun sent him crashing to the ground. Now, Taijun said coldly, this should be over. After subduing Isoka, he extended the chains that bound everyone else nearby. Why a ranked player? That one like you would do something like that, he demanded. He then kicked Isuka hard, sending him flying several meters away. Stop wasting my time. Tell me everything you know about Niru. The associations have already sent reinforcements. Once they arrive, you're finished. Isuka only gave a smile. You really don't get it, do you? Meanwhile, in the command room, two executives were discussing their next move. The master of the Alchemy Guild barged in. Why haven't we sent reinforcements to the eastern sector yet? The president of the association replied. I already launched an attack team, led by Park Sung-jin the moment it started. But once the eastern control room was taken, all the teleportation doors were sealed. Still, don't panic. There are two S-rank players in the place. If only they can hold out until we reopen the doors. At that precise moment, Liu January suddenly appeared before them. We return to Reo and Isuka, he said slowly. Do you know anything about the skill called Contract with the Demon? It's Nero's scariest skill. By sacrificing human lives, both in number and quality, he can summon monsters of specific levels. You mean, the sacrifice you talked about? Don't tell me what it is. That's right. Lightning Shi and Sokka teased, human sacrifice. Even the leaders of the association, in the distance, were stunned by the revelation. Hundreds of hostages have been taken by Niru. If everyone were sacrificed, the disaster would be catastrophic. Isuka continued to tease. You may have defeated me, but you will never defeat Niru. Now you have two options. Watch them die, or charge into a battle you may not be able to win. Taijun kept silent, weighing his options. At that moment, Niru's subordinates reported. Lightning Her and Sokka seems to have fallen. But the whereabouts of Kim Taijun and the Phoenix Potion are still unknown. Niru smiled maliciously. Maybe the guy is waiting for the reinforcements from the association. With a wave of his hand, dark energy filled the room. Countless humans were suspended in the air. If it doesn't show, Niru growled, I'll drag him out myself. As he raised his hand to execute the hostages, The entire hall was plunged into darkness. When he came to his senses, the sacrifices were gone. At the same instant, Taijin appeared behind him and launched an attack with all his strength. But Niru stepped aside, barely dodging the blow. Dozens and dozens of monsters sprouted from above, rushing at Taijin. I hadn't expected a hidden ambush up high. The hostages were screaming for help, but he completely ignored them. The creatures crashed like a storm, tearing the ground into craters. In an instant, Taijin pierced through them all, with the blade glowing in the darkness. He then unleashed the Night King's domain in hopes of overwhelming the horde, but to their surprise, it had no effect. Neru laughed coldly. The demons summoned by a hellish contract are not ordinary. They only respond to me and are blessed by divine power. You may have defeated Isoka, but you should never have defied God's will. Overwhelmed by the swarming creatures, Taijin was pushed to the limit as the battle spiraled out of control. At the same time, the spectators were paralyzed by fear. "Don't tell me. Even he can't beat those monsters," someone whispered. But a sharp-sighted man noticed the truth. They were safe only because of Kim Taijian's intervention. The monsters hadn't noticed them because Taijian was fighting all of them by himself. Looking closer, they realized that each of their previous movements was meant to ward off the creatures and protect them. The man concluded that, from the very beginning, Taijian's goal had been to save them. Realizing this, the crowd shouted encouragement towards him. In the next moment, Taijian brandished his chains, binding the monsters tightly. He made a gesture for everyone to be silent. The endless waves of monsters were already wearing him out, and the panicked hostages were only making things worse. He knew that he couldn't go on like this much longer, so he instructed Park Hyanbin to move. A shadowy figure stepped forward and said, "Let's get started." Just moments before, Taijian had defeated Ryoe, Asaka, and then informed Park about everything that had happened. But now, the real problem was that the control room was full of monsters. If he only had to face Niru, it would have been manageable. But fighting here would put the hostages' lives at risk and I couldn't allow it. That's why I needed Park's help. However, Park shook his head. It is impossible to connect this area with the association. We don't even have their coordinates. Tai Young smiled. "It's okay. I just need you to teleport the monsters out of here." At the same time, when the portal opened, countless monsters were sucked towards it in an instant. Niru's eyes widened in surprise. What is this?" Even Park Jianwen was stunned. The plan was going much better than expected. Now, there was only one enemy left. Taijian instructed him to evacuate with the hostages. Park hesitated, wanting to stay and help, but Taijian shook his head firmly. "It's arranged that I can't fight and protect you at the same time." Sadly, Park gathered the survivors and fled. As their figures disappeared down the hallway, Taijian took a deep breath. The final battle was about to begin. Facing Niru's relentless assault, Taijin dodged and searched for an opening. In an instant, Niru closed the distance. With a sweep of his arm, a huge tongue of fire roared towards Taijin. Taijin raised his sword to block. A thunderous explosion echoed throughout the chamber. "No matter how many demons you kill, or how many lives you save," Niru teased, "you will never defeat me. Everything you're doing doesn't make sense." He raised his claw, ready to finish off Taijin, once and for all. But even under such a threat, Taijin's expression remained calm. "I thought Niru would die here today." At that moment, he activated the predation. A surge of crimson energy erupted, forming a colossal dragon that devoured every monster in sight. Niru froze, stunned. He had not expected such hidden power. Then he burst into maniacal laughter. "I've changed my mind, Kim Taihan. You will be the perfect offering to the gods." All around him, Niru's followers fell to their knees, worshipping, as if a divine presence had descended. The figures in front of him slowly faded into nothingness. Did she sacrifice him? Taijian muttered in disbelief. Behind Ro, a colossal green skeletal dragon materialized, the beast of that rank, Bond Dragon. Meanwhile, the fleeing survivors ran straight towards Niru's subordinates. Just as they prepared to counterattack, the enemies cough up blood and vanish into thin air. At that very moment, The entire building shook as Taijian was thrown outside by the dragon's huge tail. Nero burst into a manic laugh. The dragon is the strongest of all monsters. Taijian shot a chain through a nearby glass wall and jumped back inside the building. Damn it, what is that thing? The skeletal dragon roared and lunged forward. Before Taijian could react, his tail sent him flying again. You're finished, Kim Taijian, Nero shouted. Taijian raised his right hand, ready to unleash the predation, but a gust of the dragon's breath interrupted him mid-launch. The explosion shattered the structure with a deafening roar. Nero's smile wavered for a brief moment. A flash of surprise crossed his face. Even Nero hadn't expected it. Kim Taijian had survived that attack. It seems that I underestimated you. Taijian unleashed the predation, narrowly evading the explosion, disbelief shining on his face. This guy, he's also of that rank, but he quickly realized that forcing that kind of power must be tearing Nero's body apart. He's reaching his limit, Taijian thought. If I just hang on long enough, I can win this. But Nero had already seen it coming. Gaining time. Smart move, but that trick won't work on me. In the next instant, Nero ordered the skeletal dragon to dive straight towards Park Hyunbin and the others. A thunderous explosion shattered the ground, leveling the entire structure. Meanwhile, after a relentless effort, the guild finally reopened the portal to East Point. Led by the player Park Sung-jin, the reinforcements came through the gate. At that very moment, the dragon rushed towards the fleeing crowd. Taijian threw himself in front of them without hesitation, but the difference in power was huge. No matter how much he struggled, he could barely hold the line. Don't worry about us. Park shouted, if you die, everything will be over. In fact, Taijuna felt in silence. When Neru summoned the skeletal dragon, he had already realized that there was no way to win head-on. His only option was to gain as much time as possible, but giving up was not in his nature. There had to be a way to save everyone. Then a deep voice echoed in his mind, I can't hold back anymore. Taijian froze, not knowing where the voice was coming from. A message from the system appeared before his eyes. The predation temporarily increased, SSS rank, but the tension tore his body apart, threatening to tear it apart. Nero watched in disbelief. The skill kept increasing up to the triple S rank. A blinding surge of power filled the entire area. The predation lost control. Damn it, what kind of power did the king give me? Taijin's flesh began to fracture under the overwhelming force. Am I going to die here? He collapsed to his knees, his breathing shallow and fading. Nero was paralyzed, horrified. This power was far beyond human limits. Even its wearer could not stand it. Why isn't he canceling the skill? Is he buying time? He approached, cautiously testing the air, but the moment he did, the dragon's wing was instantly devoured by the red aura. Nero's eyes widened in terror. Taijun stood up slowly. Behind him, a colossal shadow took shape, an ancient beast unlike anything seen before. What? What is that thing? An overwhelming pressure radiated from Taijian's body. You're not Kim Taijian, Nero shouted. Who the hell are you? Where did you get that power from? Taijian raised his hand, his voice low and cold. That's none of your business because you're already dead. In the next instant, everything before him was swallowed up by predation. Kim Taijian unlocked a new ability, contract with the demon. After defeating Nero, he suddenly fell into a dream. In that dream, chains emerged from the darkness, binding his body tightly. Giant rocks fell from above, crushing the ground around them. Then, a pair of huge hands appeared out of nowhere. The next moment, the Night King's aura activated on its own. He was stunned, because his own ability was attacking him. Then the predation spoke in a good tone. Do you really think these powers belong to you? Don't be ridiculous. You devoured them. Now it's time to spit them out again. The whole dream began to shake violently. Taijian woke up startled, gasping for air. He looked at his right hand, the one that was once ruined by depression. And he found her completely cured. At that moment, Park Sung-jin entered the room with a tray of food. The table was full of steaming dishes. This place, he explained, was a recovery house prepared by the Association and the Guild of Alchemists, a token of gratitude for stopping the demons. Thanks to Taijian's intervention, they captured Asura and saved countless lives. Park stayed behind to protect him personally, but Taijian still looked confused. He remembered collapsing during his fight with Niru, but everything else was blank. So you don't remember it either? Park asked. Back to that moment. Park Hongwon had clearly seen Niru destroyed by a single blow, but the man standing there was not Kim Taijian. The stranger raised his hand, his aura cold and suffocating. Park Hyenbong instantly fell to the ground. As the figure tried to move again, his body began to fade. So this is my limit. I guess I'll be back for now. In the next instant, Taijian's body collapsed on the ground. When Park Seung-jin finally arrived, the area was nothing but ruins. No one could tell what had really happened. Later, the survivors were interrogated, but they all remembered only one thing. Kim Taijian had defeated Niru, but no one could remember how. It was as if his memories had been erased. Maybe it's the demons, Park. Just focus on healing yourself. I'll update you if anything new comes up, but Taijian knew it wasn't the demons. Nero had been completely devoured by predation. He opened his skills window and froze. Now he said, to open the door of the abyss. That's impossible. It used to be his summoning ability, and he needs 200 mana. I'm only 180. At that moment, Park gesticulated towards the door. Someone is here to see you. In the next moment, Amion slowly entered. More than a friendly visit, it felt more like a challenge. I'm here to check on you, he said coldly. But don't get cocky just because you saved some people and beat some East ranks. I'll catch up with you soon enough. Taijian had no idea why he had really come. At first, he might have genuinely wanted to see how he was doing, but now it was clear that he was already fully recovered. And the aura around him felt stronger than ever, far beyond what he had shown during the examination. She has become even stronger again, she thought uncomfortably. Then a faint sound from outside caught his attention. Lu Jiyong took a look silently tiptoeing into the room. Kim Jiyong was perplexed, because her sister was suddenly in Taihan's room, but Lu Jiyong didn't seem pleased. Can you stop calling me sister, please? And for the record, the access code was provided by the association. Also, to S-Ring players sharing a room. What do you think that means? The cheeks of MJ. Young they turned crimson in an instant. Taijian quickly interrupted. Enough. Just tell me why you're here. Leon's tone softened. I came to check on you and to give you something. He explained that during his talk with the president of the association, he had learned that the goal of Taijian was the Asian Friendship League. You achieved a great feat in East Corner, but your ranking is still only the 30th. Only the top 5 qualify. So I came to deliver this to you, the right of authorization to the dual dungeon, Fire Temple. Meanwhile, back at East Corner, a group of hooded figures arrived led by the vice president of the Evil Guild, Sato. They were looking for any sign of Niru, but they didn't find anything. When a subordinate asked if they should report, Sombra replied calmly, needlessly. Nero was just a hired hand. Our real goal is now complete. At that moment, a huge cargo ship appeared on the horizon. The captain shouted, "This area is restricted. Only authorized researchers." But before he could finish, they vanished into thin air. A second later, the entire ship sank silently into the icy depths. That was the shadow power, the spatial nullification. He smiled and muttered, Kim Taihan, you are becoming more and more interesting. The scene changed. The crowd was full of enthusiasm. After all, the hero of East Corner, the S-rank player King Taijian, had arrived in person. Although he had earned the right to raid the dungeon, the distribution of loot and the team lineup would still be decided by the guild. Taijian had no objections. After all, this was the Fire Temple, named after the flames that burned eternally at its entrance. The Fire Temple was the second dual dungeon ever discovered in the country. Before Taijun's return, the Nicktalker Guild had tried to clear it and suffered many casualties. For the sake of points and winnings, Tai Jian had no choice but to participate, but his right hand was still damaged by predation, leaving him weaker and slower. Alone, it was impossible. However, if he entered with another S rank, Lu Yiyang, that would be a different story. With two S ranks together, almost nothing could stop them. The screen changed again. More than 300 players marched towards the dungeon door, but only 2 of them were allowed to enter. Tai Jian blinked. Wait, just the 2 of us. Lu Yiyang smiled. Of course, think of it as our little date. When they entered the dual dungeon, the fire temple, the world around them twisted. Liu Jun's eyes opened slightly. The atmosphere here was nothing like a normal dungeon. Are all the dual dungeons like that? She murmured. Taijun replied. At least the one I cleared earlier, the Apocalypse dungeon, felt the same. He was still thinking about which way to go when a tentacle shot out of the darkness, dragging him directly to a hole. Tai Jian instantly reacted, ready to counterattack, but then froze. Liu Jun had already knocked down a monster with a single blow. He looked at her in disbelief. She had annihilated him effortlessly. Without stopping, Liu Yijun charged forward again. A flash of light pierced through the darkness, and in the blink of an eye, dozens of top-tier monsters were annihilated. It seemed that what Liu and January showed last time was not their true power. No wonder this raid only needed 2 people. Tai Jian clenched his fist. He would have to try even harder. Within minutes, the 2 of them had annihilated all the monsters and reached the lowest depths. The creatures were numerous and strong, but none could withstand Liu Jiang's blows. Taihan couldn't help but wonder what his team had faced before Su. His return that led to such a devastating loss. That's when Liu Jiang handed him a ring. It was called the Warrior's Ring. It increased the user's strength and stamina, enough to compensate for the power that Tai Jian had lost due to his injured right hand. She smiled. If you join the guild, you can get even better items than this one. But Tai Jian didn't answer right away. He just warned, stay alert. We're already in the boss's zone. Liu Jun looked around and pointed forward at a huge round object. Wait, that egg is the boss. Tai Jian nodded. The mysterious egg was radiating a surge of mana. He was about to inspect it when Liu Jun suddenly jumped forward and hit the egg with a full-powered attack. Tai Jian was stunned. Why was he so reckless when the dust and smoke cleared away? The giant egg lay shattered on the ground. So this is the so-called dual dungeon boss. How pathetic. Liu Jizhong smiled, but then a blinding blue light burst out from below. A deep and resonant voice echoed. Humans dare to invade my sanctuary. What fun. The light faded, and a huge flaming silhouette rose from the abyss. The S-rank monster, the Phoenix. Both of them were paralyzed in shock. The Phoenix, a creature that humans have long mistaken for mortal, possessed unparalleled regeneration and resistance to magic. Even Tai Jun didn't expect the dungeon boss to be a blue flame phoenix. With a piercing scream, the phoenix pounced on them. Tai Jian instantly realized that his power carried with it a wave of mind control. He tried to warn Liu Yan, but his eyes dimmed, and he suddenly turned his sword on him. The Liu Yan rank had fallen under the Phoenix domain. In the face of the relentless attack, Tai Jian could only dodge. He unleashed Haki Del Rey, knocking her to the ground. Damn it! React, he shouted. But Liu Yiyang had already gathered his mana. An explosion of raw energy erupted, tearing up the ground. The Phoenix hovered overhead, laughing gloomily. Humans so fragile, so easy to manipulate. At that moment, a flash of consciousness crossed Liu Yiyang's face. A chain suddenly wrapped around her left leg, then several more wrapped around her body, immobilizing her. The enchanted chains had a paralyzing effect. He couldn't move at all. So, who were you that crushed the Nictarker Guild back then? Tijin muttered. This will hurt, but hang in there. He raised his stone fist and smashed it with all his might. Liu Yang collapsed. Once he woke up, the Phoenix's control would be broken. Then it's your turn, Tai Jian said coldly. The moment he spoke, both sides unleashed all their mana. Shortly after, Taijun was seen running through the fire caverns, carrying the unconscious Liu Yan on his back. Facing a rank monster that alone was almost impossible. With each strike of the phoenix raining down, he could only look for an opportunity to counterattack. Then, in a quick movement, she slipped behind him and threw herself with all her might. But the phoenix dodged effortlessly by flapping its flaming wings. Even when she tried to tie him up with chains, the blue flames instantly incinerated them. Taijian gritted his teeth. This thing is harder than I thought. While hesitating for a split second, the phoenix threw out another wave of blue fire. He rolled barely, the heat burning his cheek. No way. This is not a normal phoenix, he muttered. Could this be the ultimate phoenix? A creature unlike any other. His power surpassed that of any standard beast of that rank. The humans had classified him as a cunning-level monster to mark his destructive power. If that was true, then with his current strength, he had no chance of breaking his regenerative core, unless he used predation. But that power might get out of control again. While Taijian was hesitating, Lu Jizhong suddenly opened his eyes. Lu Jizhong was stunned by what she saw before her. Taijian quickly explained the situation in a few words, but before she could even reply, the phoenix charged towards them. So you really think you can ignore me? He roared. However, a moment later, his expression changed into shock. The two of them had countered his attack perfectly, moving as one. Don't let yourself be controlled again this time, Taijun warned. Relax, I won't. She replied calmly. The phoenix let out an angry screech, its mana ignited as it lunged down again. Taijun activated the monarch's heart. In an instant, both statistics increased. Liu Jiang raised his spear, channeling pure energy through it. With one blow, the phoenix's body was shattered. Now, leave the rest to your big sister. SG. Amazon, Berserk mode activated. With a roar, he threw his spear with all his might. The explosion shattered the phoenix into burning fragments. She followed with a flurry of stabs, her figure a blur of light and fire. His final blow crashed, knocking the creature to the molten ground. A thunderous explosion shook the entire temple. He was panting, his strength completely exhausted. His knees gave out, and he collapsed to the ground, but the phoenix's regenerative power was activated once more. In a matter of seconds, half of his body was restored. He spread his wings to attack, but countless chains shot out of the ground, tying him tightly. Trying to pick you up again, not this time. Taihan muttered. He stabilized and unleashed the predation. Let's get this over with. Cut to the entrance of the dungeon. Worried faces waited in silence. And then, from the glowing crack, Taijun appeared, carrying the unconscious Liu Yiyang in his arms. Taijian finally spoke up. The double dungeon of the fire temple was successfully cleared. Moments later, the news spread across the nation. Liu Yizhong, with flushed cheeks, watched the broadcast in disbelief. Why had something so classified been made public? It turned out that one of his subordinates had leaked the report by accident. He made sure to discipline them properly afterwards. At that moment, the guildmaster came to visit her. They sat together outside the hospital, talking in the afternoon sun. Then the master asked, how strong was Taijian in that dungeon? Liu Jian smiled slightly. I don't know. By then he was already unconscious. But one thing is for sure, he defeated the phoenix alone, and now he has gone to the abyss. The teacher froze. The abyss? Was it really there? Louis Young frowned, unable to understand. Most people, once they reach the top, stop climbing, but he keeps trying harder. The teacher paused, and then said quietly, maybe for the sake of the nation. In this age of monsters, he wants to protect humanity. That's why he's looking for more power. Liu Jun looked away. No, that's not the only reason. Cut to the abyss. The ground was covered with corpses, the air dense with rot and blood. On a throne of bones sat the Lord of the Abyss, the vampire king of unknown level. He extended his hand granting power to a kneeling man. Tell me, the king asked, how does the power of our family feel? The man smiled, unbelievable. I can feel the strength running through me. San Lin Fang, the best hunter of Nation Z, scene change, Taiyan entered the abyss. It was the first time he had set foot here since his return. A man in a black uniform greeted him. Paul Beck, G-ranked player, World Players Association, Zone 22. He made a gesture forward. Great dude. I'll show you what the abyss really looks like. If this is your first time here, Paul said, you should hire a guide or at least some mercenaries. The World Players Association has built several base camps all over the abyss to help with exploration, but don't confuse that with safety. Even inside the camps, the monsters keep attacking. For security reasons, Poe suggested that Taijun recruit some players, but Taijun had no intention of doing so. A second later, a massive 100 feet swooped directly towards them. With a single blow, Taijun cut the creature off instantly. I'm just here taking a walk, he said calmly. Soon after, he came to a desolate ruin deep in the abyss. He took out the magic stone that he had kept in his breast pocket. Thanks to having cleared the dual dungeon of the Fire Temple, his mana had finally reached 200. That meant I could now activate the contract with the demon, but something was wrong. The skill description had changed and now said that it could only be used once. It could be because of predation. He muttered. I guess I'll find out soon. He crushed the magic stone in his hand. In an instant, the contract with the demon was activated. A massive door made of bone rose up before him. Let's see what's waiting behind that door. He advanced, walking towards the door of the abyss, but when he crossed the threshold, his expression froze. A colossal black castle loomed ahead, silent and luminous. He barely had time to take a step when 3 shadowy figures appeared behind him. Taijin immediately pulled out his gun. So it must be the dangerous things that the system warned me about. They were succubi, the legendary soul eaters of the underworld. They devoured the life force of men, created illusions, and controlled minds. But ordinary succubi were supposed to be only B-rank monsters. Are they the ones I'm supposed to make a contract with? If that's the case, then I just have to defeat them. He charged forward, but the succubi effortlessly dodged his blow. The next instant, they released an illusion, and Taijin froze in place, his vision clouded by an endless fog. The succubi smiled, proud that their illusion took hold, but Taijin suddenly counterattacked. He unleashed the king's aura with all his might. A shockwave swept through the hall, sending the demons flying. The illusion had not worked on him at all. He had resisted her with a mysterious overpowering power. Now, let's start the contract. To make a pact with a demon, one of 2 conditions must be met. Either you offer what the devil desires, or you make him kneel through sheer power. Taijin chose the second path, but before he could start, a system message appeared, target not eligible for the contract. He froze, surprised by the unexpected warning. Then, countless succubi emerged from the darkness that surrounds him. System alert, Succubus Supremo, S+ rank detected, she smiled. A human. You'll make a nice present for the queen. Deep in the castle, a maiden knelt before her mistress. Your Majesty, a human has entered the palace. A human. The queen's sultry voice rang out. What fun! At that very moment, Taiyun entered the great castle. From every corridor, the succubi swirled towards him. I didn't even expect them to be so troublesome. 2 of them blocked his way by attacking from both sides. He leaned back, narrowly dodging their claws, then released the king's aura again. The explosion sent both demons flying more than 100 meters away. He exhaled, finally catching his breath. If none of them is the goal of the contract, he thought, then there is only one left, the so-called queen. At that moment, a serene-faced maiden appeared. His Majesty is waiting for you. Taijun followed her to the throne room. On the dais sat a majestic and impressive woman wrapped up in a crimson shadow. Welcome to my palace, Purr. I'm Rosalie, mother of all succubi. A system message appeared. Target of the demonic contract identified. Taijun's eyes narrowed. So I was right, it's her? Taijun froze. Queen Sukubo was speaking in human language. Surprised. You humans can understand our language too, right? So tell me, what brings you here? Power. Wealth. Fame. None of those, he replied calmly. I came to make a contract with you, Your Majesty. Rosalie let out a soft giggle, and then burst into laughter. You're bold, you're human, but jokes like that can cost you your life. Absol Duke, Queen of the Succubi, Rosalie. Unknown level. In the next instant, countless clays were hurled towards him. Taijun unleashed the king's aura by facing his power head-on. The collision of their energies echoed throughout the room. I will make you submit through force. Taijian blocked his blow with a short sword unfazed. He jumped high in the air and threw petrified towards her. But a second later, every skill I had just stopped working. Rosalie snapped her fingers. The world around him warped and twisted. When Taijin looked again, he was standing in the middle of a Moderna city. Before he could react, the ground disappeared, and he sank into the sea. That's when he realized. I was caught up in the illusion of the queen. When he threw it, he mumbled in disbelief. His voice echoed around her, from the very beginning, of course, damn, he growled under his breath. The moment he understood that he was inside the illusion, the world changed again. He was standing in a memory of his own childhood. Back then, he used to say every day that he wanted to become an awakened one, so that his parents could live a better life. But all her parents ever wanted was for her to be able to grow up safe and sound. As he was reliving those warm memories, a flash of light struck him, and the scene of the fatal car accident reappeared before him. Then came the echoes of another memory, one I'd rather forget. The days when, with no talent to wake up, he was endlessly harassed. He became nothing more than a porter at other people's parties. He realized that he couldn't help anyone, and that anyone who helped him ended up suffering, so he left his aunt and uncle behind. His mother once wished him happiness, but to gain happiness, he needed strength. At that moment, the system detected the hypnosis of the queen, and tried to resist. It failed. All his stats dropped sharply, every skill disabled, all but one, predation. Without hesitation, Taijun activated it. On the other side, Rosalie was watching with interest. This man is still standing even in my world, but soon something felt wrong. The Taiyan before her looked older. His memory seemed to split, existing in two timelines. How intriguing. Which search engine are you hiding? Just as she was trying to look deeper, a figure appeared before her. Her eyes widened. The king, the energy of predation exploded outward, swallowing all his illusion. The dream was shattered, and reality returned. Tia, and an hour he was standing behind her with his cold voice. For a queen, spying on a man's memories is a terrible habit. I'll say it for the last time, Rosalie, accept the contract. She smiled faintly. In fact, you broke free, impressive, but you can't kill me. He stretched out his hand, his clays enveloped him. All right, I accept. Then he gently bit her shoulder. System message, conditions met, contract invocation complete, demonic pact. Mayak established, title acquired, man of the queen. Updated skill level, new skill unlocked, perfect hypnosis. Increased charisma stat. Rosalie whispered softly, rest now, the man chosen by the king. When the contract was sealed, Taijun's vision faded to black. When he woke up, he was back in the player's area. Rosalie sent me back. He stared at his updated skill list in disbelief. If I can summon her during the Friendship League, then even the national level players won't have a chance. But why did that person suddenly change his mind? And that last line still resonated in his mind, the man chosen by the king. Could it be that she also knows the king? At that moment, Beck turned to him and said, why don't you hire a guide? But Taijan refused. It was all over now, and it was time for him to go home. Change of scene. Reo Aong had just finished his hospital discharge. A group of people slowly approached her. Chairman, congratulations on your recovery. The speaker was Jungin Su, a wizard and player of the Walkers Guild. Nocturnes. He brought two pieces of news. The player Kim Taihan had returned from the depths of the abyss. Raijoy Zhong was slightly surprised. After all, that place was known as the S-Class Players' Graveyard. There was no way Taijan could explore it. But the return of Taijan itself was not the problem. The real problem was the person who went to meet him. That person was Kong Kan Yuk, the leader of Gwen Samoro, one of the 4 great guilds. Cutscene. Kong Kan-yuk suddenly appeared before Tai-jaeon and said, "Let's fight." Then he walked slowly towards Kim Taihan. Kwang Kong-yuk, the guild master of one of the 4 great guilds, was known as the strongest tank. He once fought hundreds of monsters alone for 10 hours straight and won. His most infamous act, however, was forcing people to join his guild through duels. At that moment, Secretary Kim quickly intervened to stop him. "Can you tone it down a little bit? Keep it up and you will be driven out of the abyss completely." Then he turned to Tai-jaeon to explain. "Actually, we are here to invite you to join our guild. If you agree to join, there is no need for a duel. So basically, if I refuse, I have to fight you, right?" "Exactly. But honestly, joining us is not a bad deal for you." I knew that Tai-jaeon was already preparing for the Friendship League. His guild had the deepest progress in exploring the chasm between the Big Four, with huge dungeon resources and strong research support. If Tai-jaeon joined them, he would easily cover the contribution points he was still missing. Hearing this, Tai-jaeon fell silent, deep in his thoughts. But before Secretary Kim could say more, Kong Kong-yuk motioned for her to stop. If he was that easy to recruit, he would have joined someone else a long time ago. Tai-jaeon looked up and muttered, "I've changed my mind. We'll do this your way. Whoever wins gets to keep what they want." Scene cut to a massive arena, already packed with a roaring crowd. The audience was buzzing with excitement, eager to witness the showdown between Kim Tai-jaeon and Kwon Kanjuk. At that moment, a familiar figure caught Tai-jaeon's attention. It was reporter Kim. Tai-jaeon grabbed her by the arm with a smile. "Long time no see, reporter Kim. We met during the player exam, didn't we?" Blushing, she nodded quickly. "Of course I remember." Tai-jun smiled and turned to the crowd. "Any other questions?" "She'll take care of them. I have a bereavement to attend to." With that, he turned around and walked away. A moment later, Tai-jaeon stepped onto the arena stage. "Kung Kong-yuk," he muttered, "honestly, I thought it would make you cringe." Tai-jaeon confidently replied, "Enough talk, let's fight." Their auras flashed, 2 titans ready to collide. On the sidelines, Choya S-Sol announced, "The rules are simple. The match ends when one side is completely defeated." Before he could finish, both men unleashed their mana at full power. Tai-jun attacked first by activating the aura of the King of Knights and charging directly at him. The power of the skill had grown immensely enough to suppress even the S-class players, but it barely baffled Kwon Kong-yuk. Still, he smiled. "It's not bad." In the next instant, he disappeared and reappeared behind Tai-jaeon, his speed like that of a hunting leopard. He struck with all his might. The impact roared like a tiger's attack, shockwaves ripping through the sand. Tai-jaeon was thrown dozens of meters away. Without using the petrification time, he could have been crushed. Before he could recover, Kong Kong-yuk launched another attack. The mana emerged, forming a pair of glowing bull horns on his forehead. "Bull charge," he roared, darting forward. Tai-jaeon dodged to the side just in time. Then, boom! A huge ghost elephant appeared behind Kwon. He trampled with a power that shook the earth. When the dust settled, Tai-jaeon was still standing in front of him. Kwon Kong-yuk smiled, "Not bad, your evasion is impressive, but tell me, how do you plan to win this fight?" Tai-jaeon smiled. "Unless you have another beast up your sleeve, this won't end the way you think." "Then take a closer look," Kwon said, eyes burning. "I'll finish this in one move." In an instant, the entire arena erupted. Everyone knew what was coming. This was the final form of Kwon Kong-yuk. The crowd murmured. Not even a rising star like Tai-jaeon could take on the guild master. "Even you," Haein leaned forward curiously, his eyes fixed on the stage. But the young Anso nervously warned, "If Tai-jaeon loses, he will be forced to join the guild. We have to stop this fight." Kwon's ability, the Blessing of the Beast, allowed him to mimic the power of any creature in hand-to-hand combat. That made him an unstoppable monster. Against him, Tai-jaeon had virtually no chance, but to John he simply smiled. "Don't worry, Tai Jian has never shown all his cards in any fight. The next moment, Kong charged forward with all his strength. Tai Jian didn't flinch. He faced the attack head-on, calm and focused. When their punches collided, gasps filled the arena. Kung Kan-yuk suddenly fell to his knees. Even he seemed completely confused. Tai Jian straightened his back and said coldly, "It looks like I win." The crowd froze. No one could believe what they were seeing. The guildmaster who had cleared over 100 dungeons was kneeling down. On his own, the whispers spread. Taijun had cheated somehow. Taijun looked at him thinking, so this is the power of the strongest tank. There's no way I could have beaten him in pure combat. If it wasn't for my hypnosis skill at the last second, I would have lost for sure. John's face contracted with fury. He clenched his fists. Damn it! I let my guard down. Then he raised his voice. Silence. I don't know what he did, but I admit it. I lost. If you are part of my guild, you will respect that result. From the stands, you watched Yan, half amused. He's furious. Guests who hit their pride hard. Still, to make him kneel in a single instant, Tai Jian definitely has another ace up his sleeve. Tai Jian, you never cease to amaze me. Quan Kan-yuk said with a half-smile. Tai Jian calmly extended his right hand. It was a good match. Quan frowned slightly. Tell me, did you plan this from the beginning? Tai Jian nodded. In a way, yes. Quan sighed. A deal is a deal then. So he went on. What do you want? Endless wealth. A unique artifact. Taya and shook his head. None. I want access to the Minotaur Labyrinth. I'm joining that raid. Elsewhere, the department head was stunned by the news. The labyrinth of the Minotaur lay dangerously close to the entrance of the abyss, a maze of traps and twisted spatial fissures. It required players with exceptional perception to survive, but countless guilds and S-class adventurers had already failed. Currently, the Indivisible Guild had the rights of incursion, planning to explore it in secret. But how did Tai even know about that? Wouldn't this cause problems? The boss couldn't shake his unease. In the abyss, anything could happen, but for now, they had no choice but to trust Tai Jian. His real concern wasn't the dungeon itself, it was the possibility of his worst fears coming true. At that moment, an alarm sounded on the trading screen. Urgent message from the Players Association of our nation. They are requesting immediate contact. The saint herself had sent an official invitation to Kim Taihan. The guild leader was stunned to hear the news. Change of scene to the huge door control center below the association headquarters. Secretary Kim was going through the list. Confirmed count. 100 participants for the maze raid. Everyone is present. Under the leadership of the guild leader, the group advanced towards the entrance of the Minotaur Labyrinth. A thunderous rumble echoed moments later. The raid had begun. The monsters came out of the shadows. A single figure ran past. In an instant, every nearby Minotaur fell, cleanly cut into pieces. Quan Kan-yuk smiled. I didn't expect you to be so sharp. How was the handling of the gun? Tai Jian felt. It feels great. Quan smiled. Fine. That sword, a slun, rare grade. It was supposed to be your welcome gift if you join my guild. Tai Jian raised an eyebrow. Are you sure about this raid? No one has cleaned this maze in 30 years. Quan calmly replied. It won't be easy, unless we use special tactics. But Secretary Kim downplayed the concern. Relax. Everyone listens to at least Class B. These beasts won't last long. In addition, the Vice Master is using perception magic to reveal all the traps ahead. Actually, we've been preparing 4 months, he added. In the depths of the abyss, we find an escaping creature. Hood of the Labyrinth. He had the same sigil engraved on his body. When they touched the remains of the creature, everything except the broken horn crumbled to dust. That confirmed it. They could use the horn's trail to locate the true path deeper inside the labyrinth. Moments later, under the leadership of the Vice Master, the team reached the end of the maze. Before them stood a huge statue of an imposing and ominous Minotaur. Wait, are we supposed to put the horn on him? Someone asked nervously. Quan Kan-yuk gesticulated. bring the horn here. Tai Jian thought to himself. Same, so it's really repeating the same as before. The raid team found the statue, put the horn back on, and that's when everything went wrong. At that moment, the guild leader fixed the horn in place. A faint rumble resounded as the statue began to dissolve. Bone-white remains emerged from the inside of the fading stone. When a light faded, they found themselves standing in a completely different environment. Just as I thought, Tai Jun grimly realized. A spatial shift trap has been activated.